Good morning.
Good morning, Slalo. Are you well, Chair?
I'm well, Premier. How are you?
Yeah, Pinto, Chair.
Yeah, Premier.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Premier.
Morning. Yeah, I've checked the participants here. We've got a quorum as members, and the Premier and the team is here. Can I welcome everyone at this meeting, the honorable members of the portfolio committee, the support staff, and extend our welcome to the Premier and the senior management from the office. And thank you for understanding our postponement of the meeting last week. It was beyond our control. Thank you for that cooperation. I think the meeting it's going to be fruitful and not be that long for no apparent reason. Okay, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues. Chair, we have received one apology from Member Makwala. He's attending a class this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we then move to item 3, a confirmation of the agenda as it is flighted? I see 2 hands here before I go to the next item, but I don't see whose hand is it.
Member Hassan.
Member
Hassan.
Malema Hassan.
Member Hassan, yes, and Member
Malema.
Okay,
We are
Member
both ready to
Hassan.
adopt the agenda.
Oh, okay, perfect. Go ahead.
I will second.
Okay, thank
If
you
it's
very much.
adopted.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the item number 4. I think members have read the minutes. Can I have the move for the adoption of the minutes of the 10th of August?
I move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Malema. Can I have a seconder?
Member Hassan.
Thank you very much, Member Hassan. Can we then move to... Can you write the agenda again? Still looking for my... No matters arising. Is there any matters arising, support staff? None. Yes. Okay, can we move then to item 6.6, 6.1? Premier, I would advise that we do the first quarterly report and also the full report on Harambe, and then we will engage after the 2 reports. Can I hand over to you, Premier?
Thanks to you, Chair, and members of the committee. Truly appreciate the opportunity at the moment to engage with you and present to you. I still hope and wish before the end of the year, Chair, Member Dlamini, that we will be in a position to have an OCPOL meeting in a hostel that has been finished, cleaned, and ready to be occupied by our people. That dream still live in my thoughts, and I hope it will be realized. I'll allow both the DG and the team to take you through both reports, and then we can engage immediately after that report. Good morning once more. DG?
Thanks, Premier. Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, colleagues. With your permission, Chair, I will do the first part of the report, and I'm going to ask that the second part of the report be dealt with by the acting DDG for PRAS. On our report for the first quarter, Honorable Chair, we give the highlight, the presentation outline that you all have. I'm not going to move. We can move on to the third slide. On the third slide, over here, Chair, we give a sense of what it is that guides the Office of the Premier in terms of its work, and this is in line with the National Development Plan and the Growing Gauteng Together 2030. The key elements indicated here, we would continue to radically look at interventions to reduce poverty, inequality, but equally improve socioeconomic development as well as transform the economy and society. We are also wanting to do that by leading on the 7 priority areas that have been lifted, and they are indicated as how we build a capable, ethical, and developmental state, the transformation of the economy and moving with job creation, the area of education, skills, and health, but more importantly, how as part of dealing with poverty that we consolidate the social wage through reliable and quality basic services that are being provided. An aspect that we've got to deal with would be on spatial integration, human settlements, and to ensure that people live in habitable conditions, and local government that is functioning for service delivery. An aspect of social cohesion and safe communities, as well as a better Africa and the world. And I think the BRICS program begins to give a sense of that. And therefore, our roadmap remains Growing Gauteng Together. In the next slide, Chair, it's a matter that we all know, and I'm not going to speak to this. It's a conceptual framework of how all the different pieces come together, as well as on the next slide. On this slide, we begin to then give more clarity of the 7 priorities on how we are going to be dealing with that. And I would want to move on to the next slide, on slide number 7, just a framework of what are those elevated priorities that we continue to monitor in respect of the improvement of conditions of people in the townships, informal settlements and hostels, but equally all citizens of Gauteng. We give a sense among those elevated priorities, focusing on incomplete infrastructure, the battle against crime, corruption and vandalism and lawlessness, strengthening the capacity of the state, improving health and wellness of communities, and accelerated economic recovery. The next slides are then going to talk to each one of these specific areas in a way of how do we move, how have we fared in the first quarter, Chair. One of the key areas from an economic partnerships point of view as part of our economic recovery and acceleration has been that the Premier led a team to the 14th Metropolis World Congress in Brussels, where major cities of the world had convened to address and deal with issues that were facing global cities. And I can indicate that we came back with the chair, Gauteng being the regional chair of the Metropolis for the Africa bloc. Not only that, the BRICS summit that is concluding today, we've seen the Premier holding high-level talks with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition as wanting to get Gauteng to be the trade destination of choice. In this regard, there was also work with the Department of International Relations on how we could coordinate and make sure that Gauteng becomes a destination of choice. Chair, there's also been a meeting with the World Bank. So these are all the activities that have taken place as part of forming partnerships, discussions with the World Bank to try to see how we can use this instrument, the instruments that are available at the World Bank, to help move Gauteng in meeting its economic, trade and social development priorities. We are, through the Premier's work on wanting to see Gauteng being positioned as a go-to destination for all big tournaments. We have seen how Gauteng has been launching and hosting these tournaments, and this is one of the areas through which we want to excite both in sports, arts, culture, and recreation. This is what we are dealing with, and those are indicated. The Nedbank Cup, as well as the African Cup of Nations qualifying matches between Morocco and South Africa. We can move on to the next slide that further goes on to show an important aspect is the work that we are continuing to do as we prepare to see how we position Gauteng to participate in the Inter-African Trade Fair that will take place in Cairo in November 2023. That work has been continuing. There's also been support of smallholder producers in terms of how we capacitate them. We're showing there that 95 smallholder producers have been supported in this period, and 21 of them were supported to produce food in Citibank and the West Rand district, and 13 of them, Chair and honorable members, have been commercialized. 16 smallholder livestock and poultry producers have been targeted for commercialization, with 375 smallholders participating in capacity building programs. This is one way through which we want to make sure that smallholders can be viable and participate. In the next slide, as part of economic recovery and acceleration, we also give a sense of what are the targets that have been set for GPG targeted expenditure, an area of underperformance in some, but we are in Q1 especially, the spend on women standing at 29.8% as against 40%. It's a target that we will continue to work towards. The youth spend at 18.3%, the people with disability at 0.32%. But what is important here is an area that we have seen as part of dealing with people with disabilities. We have been able to increase the number of companies that are held by or owned by persons with disabilities to 4,543. And hopefully with this increase of the number of CSD players now, we should be able to get to a point where we move. As in terms of the OOP, the Office of the Premier directly as a department, we have seen the expenditure against those target groups, Black people, 82%, whereas a target of 80 had been set. We have surpassed that by 82% by 2%. The percentage spent on women, slightly under by 2%. In terms of youth, we're sitting at 9% of the 15. For disability spend at 0.5%, and it's an area that we've got to deal with in terms of township spend at 70%. An important area, so this is an area that we have seen some improvement, but still lagging behind, and we would have to deal with that. 15-day payment, we are sitting at 98.91% on 15 days. One or two invoices would not have been paid within the 15 days, but we want to move to 100%. But at 30 days, we're sitting at 100%. On youth economic acceleration, we have seen the number of bursaries that are provided for by the Gauteng City Region Academy, the employment of solar technicians, and in partnership with MERSITA and related SETAs, and as part of the NASISPANE program. We can talk to, that is broadly in terms of economic recovery and acceleration priority, what we have been able to do in Q1. If we move on to the next priority area, how we are fighting the battle against crime, corruption, and vandalism. Chair, we indicate that all the cases that were referred that needed to be the attention of the law enforcement agencies, these have been all referred for criminal investigation. We also know on the right side, we show crime prevention, that we have launched the Crime Wardens program to strengthen the existing law enforcement officials. We are happy to announce that as of now, 4,000 of these crime prevention wardens are in the streets managing and helping. Part of fighting corruption and has also been the extent of the vetting. We indicate the number of people that have been vetted and those that are waiting feedback from vetting. Everybody has submitted as in terms of SMS, but there has been a delay on feedback from the State Security Agency, and it's a matter that we're dealing with. Except for the 58 SMS who have come recently, and we are getting them to apply. Chair, in terms of SCM, of the 586 SCM posts that are filled, 296 were vetted, and 220 of those are waiting feedback from SSA, and 70 SCM officials are being pursued to apply because they had not applied in this particular regard. It's an area of work that we are dealing with. If you go on to number 3, the priority number 3, it's improving the living conditions of people in townships. Chair, you would recall that as part of celebrating the June 16 commemoration of Youth Day this year, the province did not commemorate it with a rally, but in fact, we used the 47th anniversary as a job fair campaign because we wanted to unlock job opportunities for individuals, and hence we saw the launch of the job fair program on that day. We also have seen, as part of that process, there were 22 walk-in centers across the province where young people could go and apply for job opportunities that government has made available. We have seen MEC Maile in May visiting the Citibank District Municipality, handing over the houses to the community of Savannah. We have seen the recruitment and the mobilization and deployment of 6,000 temporary Green Army workers for cleaning and greening the Gauteng. We have also moved on with the mobile device repair program that was launched to train young people in townships and to repair and open business opportunities for themselves. The launching of the state-of-the-art trade test center in Babsofontein has been one of those, and a service delivery for the military veterans, where between 300 and 500 military veterans have been or would be employed by the Department of Community Safety. This is one part through which we are improving the lives and conditions of people in townships, informal settlements, and hostels. On the next slide, we also begin to give a sense of interventions that have now also been implemented as part of these key priority areas. We have had rolling out social dialogues through GCR departments with communities as a means of ensuring that we could minimize service delivery challenges that communities are facing. There has been interventions in terms of managing cable theft, electricity challenges that communities are facing, the best pipes, how we deal with that, illegal dumping and sewer spillages, and we give a sense of the numbers that have been indicated of where these activities were taking place. Chair, we also noted interventions that were made by the Office of the Premier to prevent service delivery protests. We do these through different modes of communication, either through WhatsApps, emails, telephone correspondence. There has been visits to hostels. The Office of the Premier has been meeting with ESCOM as part of dealing with electricity. There was a meeting in Ward 58, informal settlements, and had to deal with the Fine Town service delivery issues. So these are but an indication of the proactive measures that would have taken in respect of this particular area. As it relates to priority number 4, which is our prioritization of health and wellness, we gave an indication that during this quarter, we had noted 3 spheres of government working together to deal with the outbreak of cholera in Hammanskraal, where the Premier led and met with the mayor of the city of Tshwane to engage communities and to ensure, confirm that they were being supported. We've also noted during that period that President Ramaphosa, accompanied by the ministers and deputy ministers, as well as the mayor of the city of Tshwane, also visited the Rooiwal wastewater treatment plant and made commitments on how the whole area and the community of Hammanskraal will be supported in this particular regard. In terms of strengthening the capacity of the state, Chair, we want to confirm then the establishment, and as part of this, that 198,000 posts is what the province has. Of that number, 179,000 posts are filled, a vacancy rate of 10%. But through the NASISPANI program, we now know that these unfilled posts have been advertised, and there will be interviews conducted, and the vacancy rate will be drastically reduced as a consequence of that. We also noted that there are currently 10,000 incumbents that are employed, additional to establishments in the province, as well as 13,000 who are employed out of adjustments to the posts where they are. And ordinarily, Chair, these out of adjustments would be at a point when you are wanting to maintain a skill in the public service, and therefore there would have been these out of adjustments employments that have been. We've also monitored and continue to monitor annual performance plans of departments, and there are all 14 GPG departments would have 23 indicators in relation to persons with disabilities, and 228 indicators have been disaggregated for these persons in the current financial year. The support for township enterprises, in respect of this, we have noted that 94 township enterprises have been registered and verified to be able to manufacture and supply a range of services and goods in this program. And as in terms of employment, we have spoken about the NASISPANI initiative that has been launched and how we are beginning to move in this particular regard. Chair, on the next slide, we then give an indication of the performance in terms of non-financial information of the total indicators that are there that have to be met. 74% of these indicators have been met, and 26% are still to be met, but this is as at Q1. And on the next slide, we give a sense of the programs that are achieving, and clearly the one program that is underachieving at this point, but we are continuing to monitor, is program 1, that is sitting at 29%, with program 3 sitting at 92%, and we will continue to monitor and ensure that performance is actually maintained. On the next slide, in terms of program 1 quarter performance as well, we show the number of what has been achieved in terms of program 2 achievements, is the number of reports on vetting of officials in high-risk areas as was pronounced by the Premier, and the number of Black people that have been targeted for business opportunities as indicated here. Areas of underperformance under program 1, as we indicated, is those targets as in terms of not meeting the 15 days payment at 100%. We are sitting at 98.91%, and the elements of preferential procurement that we will be dealing with, and that slide indicates which areas have been underperforming. In terms of program 2 achievements, Chair, on the next slide, we give you a sense of why we talk about the performance or improvement in program in achievement in this program. The percentage of registered COCTA CDWs, the number of reports that are complying with 60 days of precautionary suspensions or disciplinary hearings, and we give a sense of what has been achieved in this particular area. An area of underperformance would have been the number of cabinet community engagements, but here I should also indicate that while it's given in this particular way, but the Nterisano programs have been dealt with differently, where the EXCO has taken a view to visit with the councils before. So there has been a meeting already with the Mfuleni local municipality to help understand the challenges that the municipality is facing in service delivery to the community of Mfuleni. And I know that yesterday there was a similar, although it's not for Q1, but just to give a sense that yesterday a similar meeting took place with the local municipality of Mohali City. These are areas that are continuing to operate and improve on. In terms of the next slide on Q1 performance, we're talking about further achievements is the extent to which we've been able to note the GPG-wide procurement spend on enterprises that are owned by targeted groups, the percentage of fraud and corruption charges that have been reported to law enforcement agencies. Those are some of the key areas, as we had spoken about, an improvement in the area of fighting corruption. It's an area that continuously receives attention on an ongoing basis. What is still to be done from an underperformance on Program 3 is the number of approved fraud detection review reports that have been issued. It is something that we are dealing with on an ongoing basis. Chair, on the next slide, we're broadly talking about our automated monitoring and evaluation system that we use to track the performance and whether we are making progress in relation to the achievements of annual performance targets that have been set, and I would not want to go into too much detail about that. That would be the first part, Chair, of non-financial performance information. The next reports from pages 25 is financial information, and I'm going to ask the CFO to quickly take us through the financial performance. CFO, if you could do that, and maybe once CFO has finished, I will ask the acting DDG for PRAS to deal with slides 47 to 57. With your permission, Chair, CFO.
No, thank you very much, DG. Good morning to you, DG, the Premier, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Members. We are presenting the financial performance for the first quarter, Chair. The slide that is on the screen is an indication of us having achieved 73% of our projected budget, and this would have been a projected budget for the first quarter of the financial year. Of course, we are concerned, and this is something that the DG has paid focal attention to, with the year-to-date expenditure of 14%. On an equalization level, we should be sitting at 25%, and this is something that the DG has been looking into in order to make sure that we improve in the second quarter. In terms of the programs, Chair, this is the next slide, slide number 26. In terms of the programs, we're sitting, Program 1 was sitting at 77% of the projections. Program 2 sitting at 63%, and Program 3 sitting at 93% of expenditure. Our concern, Chair, remains goods and services, which is spending at 30%. However, Chair, we also have the Harambe a non-profit organization transfer that we need to make. There has been an executive decision that that part of our work or the program should be moved to the Gauteng Department of Education, and we are in engagement with the Gauteng Department of Education together with the provincial treasurer to try and deal with the transfer. And as a result, that will affect our under expenditure. On slide number 27, Chair, we give some analysis in terms of the under expenditure that we've had. Part of that, Chair, is as a result of at the beginning of the financial year, there has been an indication by the provincial treasury that we should move away from manual payments and move closer to doing electronic payments. As a result, there was delays in the payments of the G-Fleet invoices, which were paid immediately. The first quarter invoices being paid immediately after the quarter has started as a result of delay in raising the POs. We have, Chair, again, to a certain extent, as a result of some capacity issues within supply chain, some of the projects have been delayed as a result of delay in the procurement processes, and Microsoft licenses that we paid in the previous financial year, and that budget not been spent in the first quarter. However, we have redirected that budget for spending in the area of tools of trade, where we need to buy tools of trade. Year-to-date expenditure, Chair, as I've already alluded to on slide number 28, is sitting at 14%. And some of the reasons that I have given, including the concern that we have around goods and services, the under expenditure in goods and services, but also the transfers that we still need to make to the Department of Education. The life as demand spending share coming in, again, as a result of the accruals that emanated from the previous financial year. We anticipate, Chair, that we will have an over expenditure that we should be able to correct, of course, with the discussion of the GPT in the second quarter when we deal with budget adjustments around the issues of life as demand claims. Chair, that in terms of slide 30, that talks to fruitless and wasteful expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, and irregular expenditure in the quarter that we are dealing with. We have not recorded any of those expenditure. On slide 31, Chair, we are reflecting the revenue analysis. Our revenue is in par with or is above par from our projections, and some of that is as a result of the parking facilities that have increased, and some of the debts that we have been able to recover from some of the transactions that we are dealing with. So the rest of the slide gives a detailed explanation, and I will not go through that. I'll consider that to be additional information to what I've already presented. DG and Chair, thank you very much. That is the first quarter financial reporting. Thank you.
Chair, thanks, Chair. With your permission, I'm going to request that, in fact, information in slides 40 to 46 is what has already been included in the quarterly report, and we would like to jump to slide number 47 and ask the acting DDG for first to take us through the report. With your permission, Chair. Ntombi.
Thank you very much, DG. Greetings, Premier, Chairperson, and members of the committee. A number of the areas, again, have been covered by DG's presentation, so I'm not going to be long. I am presenting the status of designated groups and performance in the quarter. In terms of youth employment, which we began tracking a few years ago, Chairperson, the province is currently at 29% of the total staff complement consisting of the youth force. The representation of youth has increased by 0.3 from 28 to 29.17. We're aiming for 30% and we are almost there. The next slide, please. In terms of representation of persons with disability in the province, the employees currently is at 2.39%, and there is a figure there. This representation has decreased, unfortunately, by 37, which we were at 2.46, and now we're at 2.39. And 13 out of 14 departments do comply with the 2% national employment target. The Department of Social Development is leading the province by 5%, followed by eGov at 4%, and other departments are playing around 3% and below, but the illustration is there. Next slide, please. In terms of women in SMS, of course, the target is 50%, and we're just 3% short of meeting the target from a provincial perspective. Actual number of women has decreased by 6 between April and June, though the total percentage remains at 47, so it hasn't affected. If you go to the next slide. So in terms of the illustration by department there, you will see 6 GPG departments have remained at 50% and more. If you look at an example of social development at 62%, that is human settlement, agriculture, community safety, office of the premier, social development, sports, arts and culture. And 8 departments have below 50% representation of women. And through support of the office of the premier, we're looking at supporting them in terms of their EE plans to achieve the equitable representation of women. Next slide, please. These, Chair, are just highlights. The actual report in terms of how departments are doing when it comes to designated group is quite long. So we just pull a few just to demonstrate that there is progress and work is being done in department to empower these various groups. I will start on the women front. You will see there we've come quite far in making sure that the targets or indicators are disaggregated in a way that we can tell how many, and so is the reporting. You'll see that one of the program on economic empowerment is at 23%, which is below 23% male and 77% female have benefited. I won't go through all of them, but just to say some are 100%, and those are specific and are targeting women. In terms of market access, which becomes important, 184. If you go back, I'll just summarize so that we finalize some of the key programs that we highlighted. For example, the smallholder livestock that is on the agricultural front. We have the capacity building, which demonstrate how many women that have participated. You have there 375. In terms of quality education, the list goes on. DSD again is leading in terms of a program that are targeting women. You'll see there as well on a distribution of dignity packs. If you go to the next slide. That is finishing off the gender aspect, and those are some of the key indicators that are focusing on male-dominated industry like the DJ. The program is doing well. Over the years, a number of women have been exposed, and in this year, we're looking at 53 males that are being empowered to be DJs, as well as the leading program. If you go to the next slide. And this is with regards to people with disability, where the performance is not as much, but they are the departments are making a headway. In terms of institutional arrangement, the forum, which takes place quarterly with the sector, have continued, and awareness in terms of the policy and commitments of government to people with disability continue as a subject of engagement with the sector. One of the critical areas is universal design and access, which continues to be a barrier for people with disability to access areas like hospitals, service delivery centers, and we work with departments to make sure ramps are built, and that will continue. Integration of people with disability into the economy continues to be on top of the agenda, and as such, a number of workshops and engagement with the sector continues per corridor to make sure that they are integrated. And over time, Chair, you'll begin to see the payoff in terms of their procurement targets. Next slide, please. In terms of senior citizen and youth follows. Senior citizen with concern, Gauteng is a different case in terms of how older person, because we've got more number of older person that are retired professional and are less reliant on grants. So the program focus on that. We just want to do a desktop study to see how we're matching our services to the different clientele of older person. We celebrated on the 15th of June elder abuse. The abuse of older person continues to be of concern to the province, and that is GBV and any other area. So more work continues. We just highlighted this one. On the youth, of course, CFO has mentioned we have moved on the transfer of Tshepo 1 million. The team is already of education. We've done the handover, and during adjustment, we're looking at the transfer of the budget, and a full report is coming later. Of course, during June 16, a different commemoration was held in Gauteng through Nasispani. And of course, there are a number of key programs that are making an impact in terms of youth unemployment. And young people, Chair, are just excited and thrilled to be part of the province that is paying attention to this area of work. If you move to the next slide. And in military veteran, I think DG has highlighted, through the recruitment of wardens, we saw that there was a not enough number of military veterans, even though they possess the necessary skills. We engage the MEC for Community Safety, and in the additional recruitment, an allowance was made to target military veterans. We have more application. The department is in the process of shortlisting military veterans that will then participate, and these will come from different regions. And of course, we have other partnership with vets and other institutions to empower military veterans in terms of skills, those that want to upgrade their knowledge for better opportunities. And housing remain an issue for military veterans, and we continue to monitor. And the quarter under review, Human Settlement handed about 13 houses to military veterans. If you move to the thank you very much. On this sector, LGBTIQA+, we, of course, established a desk in the Office of the Premier, and the desk has been very active in making sure that this agenda is top in terms of the services and sensitization of how we deal with the sector. So the Directorate continues to engage with the sector in intergovernmental forum, but also assisting municipalities to launch desks and programs that will integrate the sector into our work. So a lot of work in terms of research, ensuring the work stream is set up in the province has been continuing. We are, of course, continue to providing training to SAPs, to other service provision of government to make sure that there is a sensitization so that the sector doesn't continue to face a discrimination when they seek government services. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the next report would be the answers to, or rather responses to questions that were emanating from the research analysis of the first quarter report. And I'm going to request, with your permission, Chair, that we allow our Director, Ms. Vuyiso Stevens, to present this report on our behalf. Vuyiso.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, DG. Good morning, Premier. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. There were 6 questions that we were asked from the research analysis that was conducted. The first question was around the reasons for reporting, the targets for intergovernmental relations, sub-program under the sub-program service delivery and integrity management, even though that sub-program does display the 2 targets which are under the review on the APP. Next slide. So in terms of this, the Office of the Premier is reporting against the National Treasury Budget Program structure. So this is the structure that we follow. Therefore, the annual performance plan structures and its programs and sub-programs are reported as such. So we follow that Treasury budget structure. Hence, then the reporting will follow the annual performance plan structure. But we did realize that the intergovernmental relations as a sub-program was omitted in the template that was used. But we will be correcting this in Q2. But safe to say that the intergovernmental relations is a sub-program under Program 3, and the service delivery and integrity management is a sub-program. So we'll correct this in Q2. Next slide. The second question, the members have requested us to provide the committee with reasons of non-reporting in terms of the information that is under the outcomes 3, inclusive quality education and healthcare and growing skills needed for the economy, as this was left blank. The response to this is that the Office of the Premier does not provide service delivery directly to the citizens, but it does so through the departments. And the Office of the Premier's role is to then lead, coordinate, and oversee the 13 departments and the related entities that constitute the provincial government as delegated by the Premier towards the delivery of the stated agenda and priorities. The delivery of the quality education and providing relevant skills to all citizens so that they can play a productive role in the economy, as well as promoting healthy lifestyles while providing access to quality healthcare and universal healthcare coverage, is a competency of the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Health. And as an office, we then provide that oversight role to make sure that they implement the work that relates to inclusive quality education, as well as healthcare and growing skills. So we are overseeing the work that is being implemented, and where there are areas that need intervention as an office, we do intervene and work with the departments very closely. In terms of question 3, the committee had requested us to provide an update on whether the payment of the outstanding Vodacom June invoice was effected in July. The Vodacom invoice was effected. The June Vodacom invoice was effected and it was paid in full. Currently, there are no unpaid debts that are owed to Vodacom. Next slide. In terms of question 4, program 3, underspending. We were asked to provide the committee with the details of the ongoing investigation, as well as the envisaged completion date. Next slide. In terms of this one, the investigation or the research was in relation to the health and wellness program, to the efficacy of the occupational health and safety programs across the province. These processes have been concluded and the implementation is being fast-tracked, and we will monitor and track these in quarter 2, and the spending in terms of that will be effected in quarter 2, and we'll monitor and track these. In terms of question 5, the members had asked us regarding the underperforming areas on Tish, where the targets were not achieved in relation to the township empowerment is concerned, and what interventions we are putting in place so that we can meet these going forward. And the response to this is that to ensure the achievement in the Tish areas, the Office of the Premier is implementing interventions. In fact, these interventions have started some time back, and we've put in place interventions that relate, but not limited to, the following areas. We've tailored some programs to support the SMMEs, as well as the enterprises that are owned by people with disabilities. We've assisted especially the entities that are owned by people with disabilities to register in the central supply database. And we are also having workshops to make sure that we build the capacity in the province, so that these companies can also then compete in the market, as well as in the procurement of the commodities that are being provided, but also fostering, if you can go back to that slide, but also fostering the partnerships with these enterprises, especially in the Tish areas, to make sure that they can compete. And we are monitoring the mechanisms that are being put in place, and we will be enhancing the participation will be enhanced to promote economic growth within these marginalized communities. So we work with them very closely, and we monitor and track this performance. Next slide. So the last question then relates to the fact that the committee members had noted the measures that have been put in place in terms of the different levels in quality control. And it does seem that, as the members have noted, that it has some issues and some problems. So we were asked to provide then what measures we will put in place to ensure we tighten the controls. Next slide. So with the system, the automated system that we are using in the Office of the Premier, which is the MAMS, Monitoring and Evaluation Reporting Made Simple, we've immensely improved in terms of the quality control, or to make sure that the information that is provided is of quality. We've also enhanced the accountability in terms of the information that is being provided. We've made with a three-phased approach where we make sure that the information is submitted by directors at that level, and then those that will verify the information that is submitted will be at chief director level, and the deputy director generals will then make sure that they approve to make sure, as well as then the information, the quality of the information that is provided. But also, in addition, we do present the report. It's discussed robustly at the top management level to ensure that the quality of the consolidated reports that is submitted to Oversight is informed by solid decision making with relevant and correct information that is backed by evidence. We've also made sure that the submissions are verified against the specifications that are outlined in the respective technical indicator descriptors. So this information, these quality controls that we've put in place we are making sure that the information that we are providing is of good quality. And this will continue to be made, and we will improve also as we go forward in terms of the next quarter and the other quarters that are coming up. Thanks. I think this is the last slide in terms of the questions that we were asked. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you very much. Chair, that takes care of item 6.1 on the agenda. And based on your guidance that we must take both presentations, we would want to present item 6.2 on the report on the contract between Harambe and Office on the Premier on the implementation of Tshepo 1 million from inception, including the exit report. With your permission, Chair, I'm going to ask our acting head of PRAS, Ms. Zulu, to lead us on this one. Ntombi?
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the presentation is to present that report on the contract between Harambe and the provincial government on the implementation of Tshepo 1 million from inception, including the exit report. If you go to the next slide, the exit report is quite bulky, and we just did a summary, but it is available should it be required. In a way of a background, in 2017, Chair, the provincial government partnered with Harambe Youth Employment Accelerator to support the province to achieve inclusive youth employment and economic participation goals through the Tshepo 1 million program, which was a program that had been pronounced by Premier in 2014. The program was anchored on 4 pillars. And pillar 1 was looking at focusing on young people and placing them in pathways to earning. So a preparation, including build my profile, your CV, demand learning, training that is focused on the economy, and volunteering through the Tshepo program. Pillar 2 was focusing then on providing access to work opportunities. And this had 2 categories. One was actual employment, so you are employed. And the second was if you benefited from pillar 1, so you are trained, you may yourself find employment, and you then came back to register that you got employment, but through that support. Pillar 3 was then acknowledging the role in terms of EPWP and how young people could benefit. So that was looking at placing young people through EPWP on the IRM program that has installation, repair, and maintenance focus. And pillar 4 was looking at high school preparation for people to get into pillar 1, but accessing self-paced job relevant skills. So what skills did you do you require to participate? If you go to the next one. In terms of the objectives and the critical as we assess the performance, objective 1 was to enable the widest possible range of economically excluded young people to access training, on-the-job work experience that will improve their chances of being employed. So that was aligned to the pillar 1. And objective 2 was to enable the widest possible range of economically excluded young people to access employment and self-employment. And the third one was to enable businesses of all size, particularly small, micro, and medium enterprise and township-based enterprise and cooperative, to gain access to markets, funding, and support condition. This business hire otherwise empower young people sourced through Tshepo 1 million as their business expand. And this was aligned to the work done by economic development. Next slide, please. The agreed upon project's outcome to be delivered by Harambe. So it's important because it wasn't everything that is on the objective, it was only through those that were selected. So 1 was pathway management. So that is pillar 1. And the agreement from that time, this was 2019 to 2024, was 623,000 beneficiaries that would have benefited by end of 2024. And 2 was the transition of 104,400 beneficiaries into work opportunity. Critical to remember the 2 categories, employed and placed and self-employment. And then the third one was incubation, establishment, and operation of the pay for performance mechanism. And this was agreed to, but as I will explain, it was not successful in the implementation. So the focus was on the 2 areas. Please go to the next slide. So this, in summary, I don't know if we can make it bigger for members to see, because it's a milestone. So I said the program was announced in 2014, and the work immediately began, but it wasn't through Harambe. So from 2014 to 2016, the program of Tshepo 1 million was implemented through the Department of Infrastructure Development. And at the end of 2016, the numbers that could be accounted for, and the good thing is that at that milestone, the Office of the Premier conducted an evaluation study to see what was achieved through the program. The numbers was at 350,000. So that was when we handed over. You will see there at the last column, so I've accumulatively added the numbers. So from June 2016, when Harambe took over to 2017, the numbers achieved across the pillars was 38,524, and 2017 to 2018, 73,000 cumulative, and 18 to 19, 95. So from that period then to 2019, before the beginning of the contract that we are talking about that we would have terminated, the numbers were 557,401. And remember, that was Tshepo 500. If we then move to the next slide, then that will take us to the next era. Then in 2019, we now begin the contract that we are evaluating or that we are talking about. And the pillars pretty much the same. So you will see there we've got job placement, self-employment, and then government, and that would have been the EPWP, or government opportunities that would have been provided. And there below pathways to earning is a breakdown of what is included in the numbers, and even training is then included. So we're looking on the first column in terms of the target, and then we let me just see the numbers. So you see there the target as well as achievement, and we're talking end of 2023. Remember, the contract was scheduled to end in 2024. So the target there on pillar 1 was 104,000 on pillar 2, that was a placement, 104,400. What was achieved as we ended the contract was 118,420, and that was 113% in terms of achievement. We then go to the pathways to earning. The target was 623,000, and where we were as we ended the contract was 881,084, and that was 141%. So 41% over the target that was achieved by Harambe, and that is in looking in totality of what was committed by Harambe and what was achieved at the end, and the breakdowns are there to go through. Now, zooming into the last year alone, so in that last year, and we have a target for that year, and you will see because it's accumulative, it's exceeded, but in that year, you will see that the numbers don't really add up, but they add up when you look at the total picture. So the target for the year was 24,000, but what was achieved was 26,000. Again, that was over. 140,000 for pillar 1, and what was achieved was 259,000. You will see, interestingly, that on the pillar on placement, most of the opportunities that are recorded came from GPG. Even on the total contract, as opposed to the opportunities provided through other partners, which was 53. GPG actually contributed 55,498. So as GPG, we do and did have the capacity to deliver on the program. If you move to the next slide for me. The financial implication. And again, as I said, the question was related to the Harambe. I did have the financial for the numbers before we engage Harambe, but I'll just focus on the Harambe. So from 2017 to 2018, and every time the amount budgeted for and the amount transferred is aligned. So we did not have a shortfall at any given point. So in 2017 financial year, we transferred the 110 million. And the following year, it was 117 million. And then the new contract from 2019, which then had more numbers, we then escalated the program. And that went from 124, and the following year, 131. And the 21-22 was 138. And of course, the last transfer was 144,682. So remember, according to the contract and the numbers that we had, we would have transferred for 23-24 because our contract allowed. So they then did achieve, and within this figure, which is less 1 year, we were then able to spend for the total of the contract 766,587,000. If you go to the next slide. So, and I had zoomed into that year, but if you look 2023, that was the last quarter that Tshepo 1 million existed in the shape and form that we had agreed, because plans to then transform the program were already afoot before the termination took place. The partnership with Harambe was then in agreement with Harambe. They had reached their targets. We were really having now to look what more do we change the targets. Had been terminated from the 31st of March to open doors to not only a new looking, but also a remodel youth program called Tshepo Youth Plug, and that is a new brand for the program. This program promises to be exciting in a way that it will address more than what we had agreed to in the pillars and Chair, because the challenges of young people change. So what we agreed to in 2019 and the situation currently as it stands now is completely different. So a transition plan was put in place to wind down Tshepo 1 million at that time, but also to agree and stay focused on minimizing the negative impact of the transition. So we continue to work because the system, the youth mobile that was used is still operational, and young people are still in Gauteng, are still continue to benefit. Thus, in the capacity as the National Pathway Manager, Harambe continued to interact with youth, and we did an arrangement so that department also continued to use that system. In relation to the 2 pillars of the program, that will be terminated in line with the current process. This will assist us in setting up a new and more inclusive and reimagined program that cuts across the 5 pillars. The youth strategy has got 5 pillars. And as I indicated when we signed, we thought part of economic transformation will be included, but it did not quite take off. There were areas that did not work well. So the program is housed to be set at the Department of Education, as indicated. As the program closes, I have looked at the numbers of what we did achieve. If you go to the next slide. These are just highlights of where the program, especially in TISH areas, had impact. And you can go through and to say all the region were affected differently and participation. What we might want to look at is, because there is a database of young people that were registered in the program, where they are, and we're transitioning that to education so that we don't lose trust of young people that were in the program, that there is some continuity. Next slide. So where to from now? So through that decision of the executive management team, the Tshepo 1 million is migrating. And we have taken account on the future in terms of the, remember the OCPOL workshop on youth unemployment, and a big zoom into how Tshepo 1 million has focused. We've taken into account the evaluation done by MISTRA on how the program has performed in the rebranding. So effectively, we're not talking of Tshepo 1 million, we're looking much broader. And in that, that's why we're saying it's the youth flag. All things youth. So the process of transfer is advanced. As I said, the team is already in education. We are meeting to chart the way of how we then integrate. We acknowledge, given the historical challenges with the program and how it was implemented and the perception of young people, the transfer is not footstood. So that is why there is continuous engagement between OOP departments and the implementing partner before everything is finalized or a new program is conceptualized. Next slide. So currently, the program is being incorporated into the other youth program that GDE is involved in. So there is much more expansion. The program is currently implemented. It includes learnership, internship, work integrated, which were already in the conceptual framework and the pillars that were put forward in the program. So it's not a big move from the original concept. The plans will be finalized once the paperwork and budget is done. There is no deviation from the mandate. It falls within GCRA as much broader and effective, relatively speaking. The reach and impact will be tangible. The new proposal, the escalation, will then be taken to EXCO for endorsement, and then we all system go. What is important is we have not stopped. Work continues, and young people are part and parcel of that reshaping. Next slide. I think that would be the last one. Let me just see. Okay. So in terms of the review, approach, and implementation of youth intervention, we need to ensure the wider reach. We need to look at the impact and sustainability. We are going to be systematic in the approach to youth development and respond to different cohorts. Intervention will be dynamic, reflecting the nature and challenges youth face. Critical area that will be zooming in is the response to the need, which requires a different approach and resourcing to the way that Tshepo 1 million was structured. We will be looking at resourcing and institutional support. The institutional mechanism go much broader than just the province. We want to look at the role of municipalities. Our target is the over 3 million young people that need support. Our provincial response through GCRA must be adequate. Currently, it is not. So what we'll be taking to EXCO is a much more bolder move so that young people can feel the impact. And how we're going to do this is leveraging on partnership that exists, those that are new, and having calls to action to local business to employ youth. Again, going back to the initial concept. I'm not sure, DG, if there's anything that I have left that DG would like to add. I would like to stop there. Thank you.
Premier, Honorable Chairperson, members, that concludes the items 6.1 and 6.2 on the agenda as requested. Thank you very much. Back to you, Premier.
Thank you so much, DG. Truly appreciate it, and the team. I'll hand over to the chair, Member Dlamini, if you want to raise questions, including from members. We are ready to respond as a team that have just received another clean audit, Member Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Premier, and your team for this comprehensive report and the responses. Honorable members, yeah, there is a few issues, Speaker, that Honorable Premier, that one has picked up here, that you are dealing with in your first quarter. You know, one of the things that worries me, and I'm happy you are highlighting it, but one will need an elaborate answer. The vandalism of infrastructure, it's there, it's happening, and you know, it's there, it's there, it's worrying, and I'm happy that we are dealing with it. Members, any takers? Member Msimang, and I also choose Member Malema. There are 4 hands here, but I only see Msimang, Malema. There's 5 now. I can't see who is raised.
Jack, my hand is up.
Okay, that will be Member Msimang, Member Malema, Member Bloom.
Member Alberts.
Member
Thank you, Chair.
Alberts. In that order.
Member Adams, Chair.
Member Adams, yes, in that order. Member Msimang.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me also greet everybody, the Premier and the DG and the DDGs and the staff, support staff that is here, and all members. Chair,
sorry, Chair, is Member Msimang still a member of this committee?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And congratulations, Member Msimang, on your re-election as the leader of the team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I know everything that is happening in this committee, irrespective of me being here or not being here, Premier, and you'll find out just now. One, Chair, I think it's important for us to note the Public Services Commission report that has just been released recently, which somehow is contradicting what has been presented here today. We're sitting with a province that doesn't look serious to be fighting the issue of financial misconduct. As we know, the latest report is showing that 67 million has actually gone towards financial misconduct, and in that, Chairperson, there hasn't been any criminal cases that have been opened, and of the 48 cases that have been opened or that have been reported, we're not even at half of that percentage, Chairperson, in terms of really dealing with these cases. So for me, that is a problem that shows that we're not really serious about fighting this. I mean, Gauteng has been flagged as the 3rd worst offender after national departments and also the Northwest. This is something that needs to be receiving attention. And I think the Office of the Premier has got some answers to then provide as to what has been done or what is being done to finalize some of these cases here. The other issue that is raised through the SCOPA report, Chairperson, is the sharp increase of the salary bill that Gauteng seems to be sitting with. And if I may quote the presenter from SCOPA, it says that this is threatening the financial well-being of government at a provincial level. And this also talks to the positions that are now being handed over that don't seems to be featuring anywhere on the organogram of the provincial government, but yet they are included into this. But also the sustainability of these in the long term, and what is the financial impact thereof, and what programs, as we have been told through SCOPA and we've been told through Treasury as well, that there is no new money that is coming in. Where is money coming in, or what program have actually been stalled in order, for this project or this new positions, to be funded? I think this is something that the Premier's office will need to then respond to, on this particular matter. And I can go on to other matters, but I think other members will be able to then cover those, Chairperson. But for me, the other issue is on the Tshepo 1 billion. So we were told that there will be a sign of at the close of report, and there will be a portion of money that will still need to be paid onto this. I still battle to understand if there was, a failure to meet all the targets, why are we still then feeling obliged to then pay off more money towards the service provider in this regard? And it's worrying for me, Chairperson, that we've spent a quarter of or 3/4 of a billion, that will only result, or that has only resulted in 118,000 job opportunities, as it's called, not work, but job opportunities that have been created. And I think this this committee is owed a database or a clear unpacking of who is being placed, where are they being placed in terms of the job placement. And I'm hoping that the DDG will at some point be able to then provide this to the committee so that we will be able to then scrutinize the veracity of the information that has been given to us here. But over and above that, Chairperson, when it comes to, we're told that there are businesses that have been supported through or have been initiated and supported, especially amongst young people, with the Tshepo 1 million. I want to know which businesses, where, and what kind of assistance have been given per case, and what is the sustainability of those businesses that, from initiation to where we are right now. Because part of what needs to happen is for us to make sure that once there is, assistance or monies that have been spent from a government perspective to, establishing businesses or at least assisting businesses, that we're able to then see the sustainability thereof, and we're able to then know what kind of assistance has been given and what is the ongoing intervention if there are any challenges that might be coming through. So this is something that I would want to see, Chair. But again, wrapping it up and going back to the beginning of the Tshepo 1 million is to then understand what is it that, we're still going to be paying them, and for what, if we've agreed that they haven't been able to meet the standards. And this is why we've now decided that we'd rather do this in-house. As the DDG has said, we've decided to do it in-house because in any way, the majority of the placement has somehow happened within the GPG itself. And therefore, there was no need for this to happen. So we've spent 750 million. We're still going to spend much more money, but we are saying here, or being told here, that this is money that we could have otherwise have spent a whole lot better if we had done this internally. So, Chair, those will be the questions, and following the responses, there might be follow-ups. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Malema.
Asibonge Sihlalo Maralewa. Good morning to you, Sihlalo. Good morning to the Premier, honorable members, and support staff, senior managers in the office of the Premier. Chair, I think as a point of departure, it will be appropriate that one should begin by noting and welcoming very progressive reports or reports that we've just received from the office of the Premier. And in the same vein, also mention that providing oversight will not mean that we should always criticize, even when logic and common sense dictate that accolades are due. So on that note, I want to congratulate the Office of the Premier for having received another clean audit. I think that in itself, it's very much encouraging, Honorable Chair. Chair, I have observed stemming from the presentations the positive interventions made by the Office of the Premier in the quarter under review, that being quarter one. The first one being around the 95 smallholder producers that were supported. We really welcome that. And also the increase on the number of companies for people living with disability, as it was increased to 4,543. We know that it's one of the difficult areas there and across the GPG, but that in itself, it shows that there are positive concerted efforts by the Office of the Premier to make sure that that difficulty is dealt with appropriately. So we are encouraged by that kind of progressive intervention. The township spent on the groups expenditure there were 17% against 30%. It's not bad, but we are saying that if better is possible, obviously good would not be enough. So, but it shows that there were measures in place to try and achieve that. So, but the other thing, Chair, we want to congratulate the Office of the Premier for the interventions made in a form of Nasi-Spani program. And also noting the fight, their efforts as it pertains to the fight against crime and corruption. You know, the creation of 4,000 crime prevention warders, permanent jobs, that in itself, in order to strengthen the law enforcement in the province. That in itself, it's a huge intervention made by the Office of the Premier. We really want to welcome that. And also on their, I think is it priority 3, the manner in which they handled the June 16 when they were launching a job fair campaign, it's much appreciated. And then, we are on the ground, Honorable Chair. So there is the positive responses that we are getting from all corners of the province. It's very much encouraging that we're having a government at work led by the Premier there on behalf of the of the governing party. So we really appreciate that, Honorable Chair. And also in that bracket, the 6,000 temporary Green Army workers that were employed for cleaning, that is another intervention that was necessary. So we really appreciate that, and the energy crisis response plan by the Gauteng provincial government led by the Premier, those proactive measures that were taken, we really appreciate that. It really shows that you did not fold your arms like innocent spectators when the province was confronted with serious challenge, and especially in that area of energy supply. So again, on priority 4, as it relates to the response or the manner in which the Premier or the Office of the Premier responded to the outbreak of cholera in Hammanskraal, it's very much encouraging. We have been following that even through some other portfolio oversight committees, the work that we're doing there. It was acknowledged and noted when we visited Hammanskraal, the work that was done by the Office of the Premier in that corner of our province. We really appreciate that. The partnership that we have entered into with the national sphere of government, especially on the intervention regarding the Rooival water treatment in Hammanskraal there, the 450, which eventually led to the provision of the 450 million that was made available. We want to applaud you, Premier, for that. The support that you have given to the 94 township enterprises to render goods and services there, we have noted that it's a very positive intervention, and we are also noting the measures and mechanisms that you are putting in place in ensuring that you want to drastically reduce the the vacancy rate in the government, the 8,000 funded vacancy posts. I mean, we note that with a great delight that you are hands on deck. The other issue, lastly, Chair, it's on the. Yeah, I think for now, let me leave it there, Honorable Chairperson. But also on the interventions that you have made seeking to address youth empowerment. We have noted some serious programs when you reported under the status of designated groups there that on youth you achieved 29% against the 30%. So it's almost an achievement there. We really appreciate that. But I want to also check with you as to you said that there is a decrease on the representation of people living with disability under that status of designated groups. What are the attributing factors? What attributed towards that unfortunate state of affairs, if we can be answered on that one? Then on women, we've seen that there is a progress there, which is very much encouraging. Then on the life asset demand claims, would want to perhaps be taken into confidence just to understand as to how far is that process. I can see that it is also impacted on your performance in the quarter under review in terms of those accruals. But maybe as an overall statement there, one would want to understand as to how far in ensuring that those claims are fully and completely settled. I'm not sure as to whether that has already been closed off, whether that has been completed, but if I can be assisted on that. But other than that, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much, Office of the Premier. Thank you very much, Premier. You are hard at work. You are having your hands on deck. We really appreciate and the good work that you are doing has not gone unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Bloom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, the big question that I've always thought with Tshepo 1 million is real jobs, because a lot of it's just placement in existing jobs. Now, the rationale has always been that people are more marginalized, they were given assistance, and they were able to compete better to get that job rather than people born with more privileges, if I can put it that way, or better education or better area. So that was the rationale. But job placements doesn't really mean to me a new job. It's just putting them in an existing job. And that figure over the entire period is 53,000. Self-employment, you've got just under 10,000. We do need to know if that's sort of really sustainable. They're self-employed for a year, then they go bust, or are they really? But that is a good achievement to be self-employed. Government employment program placements. Now, these are make-work placements, as I understand it. So again, you've got jobs, and what has Harambe actually done that isn't just a placement service? Then if the target, the 1 million target, I think is mainly made up of, if you look at it, support provided on the Mobi site. And that's just under 700,000. What does that mean? I mean, it could be a simple query. It's just an information site. So that the bulk of the numbers are really just the Mobi site. Support provided on the phone, but that interestingly collapsed from the. There's 128,000 over the 5-year period, but that collapsed from 1 April 2022 to 23 March over the last year. So in fact, the last year of reporting, support provided on the phone collapsed, support provided on WhatsApp collapsed, the in-person support was absolutely zero. And I'm just noticing that over the last year of operation, it was almost solely the Mobi site. But you know, just the real assessment, apart from job placement, but real jobs, because you've educated people, trained them, made them more able to get a job, an existing job. That's really what it's turned out to be. And is that value for money for $750,000? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bloom. Member Alberts.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just trying to get the button. Yeah, I fell off for a moment. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. Just some questions for clarity, basically 3 questions. People with disabilities, it's a recurring problem that the objectives of 7% are not met. Even the Department of Social Development, whose mandate is to look after these people, only meet about 5%, as opposed to the 7% target. And then all the other departments, they just are behind that 2%, 3% or worse. So, Chair, we need a plan from the executive to show what they're going to do to fill those positions so that people with disabilities actually get an opportunity as well within government employment. It's fairly easy for government to try and gauge where the needs are, where these people are, and then make sure that they know of the opportunities that's out there and that they apply. I think it's quite important that we walk the extra mile to help people with disabilities. It's very important. Then with the township assistance and the funding given to various entrepreneurs and businesses, I would just like to know how far is the Township Development Fund? Has it been completed? Has it been funded properly? Are funds flowing from the Township Development Fund as yet? And if not, what are the timelines on this fund? And what are the criteria for applying to this fund and getting assistance, financial assistance? And then the last point is that while government can employ a lot of people if there are vacancies in government departments, government cannot solve the problem of unemployment. We've seen that National Treasury has already indicated that there's a shortfall in collection of taxes, and that shortfall will be reflected in the budget going forward. Provinces will receive less money from Treasury. That will impact us. That will impact the size of the various departments. They might have to downsize. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it unfolds. But the point is that we cannot solve the problem of unemployment by just employing people in government alone. There's no problem in employing people in government. That's not a problem in itself. But we must remember that the tax base comes from the private sector, and the tax base seems to be shrinking. It's quite disconcerting. Shrinking all across the country, but in Gauteng also. So the question I want to ask against this background is, what are we going to do to ensure that there's more investment being made in Gauteng, especially investment from foreign countries? I know that the Premier went to Finland last year. I think it was at the beginning of this year, I'm not sure, but he went to Finland after the Education Committee went there. And has anything come of that visit to Finland? And is there anything else in a pipeline that will be directed towards Gauteng? We know the BRICS summit is on at the moment. Do we get signals from the BRICS countries that they will be interested in us? But once again, this is a national matter, but we need to be cognizant of this. We should not alienate our other partners. I remember when the Economic Committee went to Brazil. What was so interesting about Brazil's position is that they were trading with everyone. They were trading with Russia, with China, but also with the United States and also with the EU. They didn't choose a side as such. They said, we will trade with anyone who helps Brazil. And I think that's got to be our position going forward. But Gauteng can also draw investments, and we need to go or at least the Premier must provide us with information on what are his plans in that regard, so that we can grow the tax base again in Gauteng and job opportunities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Member Adams.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Good morning to the Premier, to honourable members, and to the staff and executive from the Premier's office. Let me focus on two things, Honourable Chair, maybe three. One looks at the transition from Tshepo 500,000 to Tshepo 1 million to youth plug in 2030. And one needs to appreciate the presentation and also the efforts that are being put in place by the Premier with regards to job creation. One cannot deny that. One cannot deny the fact that there is a massive different trajectory that is taking place in Gauteng. That yes, there's opportunities that are coming for the youth. One looks at the Nasispani, and let me just focus on that one first. One would ask the question, would it be possible for the Office of the Premier to put together a grid so that at the end of the day, one is able to gauge and able to measure what how many of these jobs, 8,000 jobs or more was filled. It'll give us a clearer picture. So one needs to have a look at a picture, as it were. When you look at Tshepo 500 and Tshepo 1 million and Harambe 1, one doesn't really get the feeling that one can honestly look at actual figures of how these programs actually benefited our youth, and one doesn't want the new interventions that are taking place of the 6,000 per month until July would suffer the same fate. So one would request that there be the grids be made available to say that in the CPWs, for instance, these are the numbers, and these are the beneficiaries, and this is the footprint of where these opportunities were made available. I think that will send a clearer, more strong message that there is gains being made. And when one looks at the issue of my second point, that the issue of still on the first point, it's going to be difficult, Honourable Premier, if one would leave job creation four squarely on the shoulders of government, which you are the leader in Gauteng. One needs to look at how do we also make sure that the private sector finds buy-in. And I think you have mentioned in the past, as I listened to you, that many of the CVs that were given, I think he's talking about over thousands and thousands, those people would be given to private sector and other programs. But that also needs to be measured. I think over the years, Honourable Premier, we have not held the private sector accountable with regards to job creation. Hence, we found the lull and finding ourselves where job creation for youth is at 72%. So it's also going to be important that we need to make sure that the private sector also measurable targets, not just things that are being spoken, measurable targets on grids to be able to say that this is actually what's taking place. Secondly, the issue of skills development, because it just takes the pressure of you, Honourable Premier, to come and I know you're making great strides, but it can become very difficult after a while, and that the other possibilities of skills development, capacity building. When you look at the CETAs, how involved are the CETAs to get the young people? Because there's programs and internships, and there's also learnerships that needs to come in. So those things need to come into play to make sure there's not only just job creation that we are talking about. The second thing I want to mention, Honourable Chairperson, is the issue of the migration of the Tshepo 1 million, which is going to end, the Harambe going into the education department. One wants to one wants to ask the question, the issue of communication, information, and just making it that the migration actually be communicated better, because I'm not seeing it happen, or if it's going to happen. I think because a lot of people are still caught up in the past programs. I think there must be a strategic and there must be a concerted communication and advertising that goes out with regards to that migration to the education department. And yeah, I think for me those are the two major issues that I want to highlight. And I think it's important that somebody asked the question, what does this profit these not Nasispani job, but the CPW jobs, the other jobs that are being rolled out? Let me just also say, we need to get bread on the tables. That's why it's going to be very critical, Honorable Premier, that accountability in terms of the jobs every month is made available, so that the society and the province and the communities can see that really it's benefiting our people. I think that's going to be the measurable yardstick that's going to take the impetus to the next level. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, members, for those inputs. Member Malema, is that an old hand?
Oh, I think it's a legacy, or maybe because of I forgot to congratulate Honorable Member Msimanga for his re-election as a leader of his party. But also to say, Honorable Chair, we welcome the Office of the Premier's responses to questions from our research analysis. We are satisfied with those responses that we got. Thank you.
Member Malema. No, I'm not satisfied with the question, more especially when you build on to Member Adams' questions, Premier. I think the question on outcome 2 and 3 was not adequate. If you can elaborate, because the question was about non-reporting on outcome 3. But that outcome also reports on GCR, Master Skills Plan. So one would like to know what is the status of this skill plan in this quarter under review. If you can elaborate on that, I think it would also be able to cover Member Adams' concern on this, skills development. Over to you, Premier, and your team to respond.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe let me ask the DG first to respond to your questions, Chair, on outcome 1 and 3 and the GCR Master Skills Plan. Then I'll come later to respond. And any other matter that the DG, maybe on Tshepo 1 million, the question that Member Msimang raised of the status of the close of report and why we still need to have a settlement payment. Let me ask the DG and the team to respond to those one, and I'll come back on all other issues.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thanks, honorable members as well. In more specific terms on the GCR Master Skills Plan and the Program 3, Chair, let us indicate that our Master Skills Plan program is led by the Gauteng City Region Academy. And what the approach that the Academy has taken was to look into the 10 high priority growth sectors that are listed in the Growing Gauteng Together 2030 plan. And we have developed what we call a labor market analysis to understand the skills requirements and the needs in those areas. So while we would have listed those specific high priority areas, a clear labor and skills market analysis is being done in each one of those areas, and let me also indicate that is not done only by the GCRA, it is done in partnership with big players or business players in those specific areas, and flowing from there would be a training regime that comes. And I'm sure in the next quarter we could be able to give a sense of how far the GCRA has come in respect of this labor market analysis, in respect of those 10 high growth sectors as indicated in the master skills plan, which indirectly also confirms or rather responds to what Member Albert would have raised about that it can't be only government alone that develops jobs. And in fact, this is a clear indication of how we are also even at understanding the skills requirements and the needs of business, that we are involving business in this particular area. Secondly, Chair, Member Msimang asked about, is that Member Msimang, if I'm not, but the question in terms of the payments, and I think DDG Ntombi will also speak to that particular area, but just to confirm that the allocations, the funding that we have on Tshepo 1 million for 2023-24 financial year is actually appropriated, although it sits with the Office of the Premier, it is appropriated to the GDE as a receiving department. And I also know that it has already been allocated to deal with youth placement programs in that particular regard. So DDG Ntombi can elaborate about the payment, but as far as I'm aware, that this is exactly where the situation is in relation to the payment that has been done in this particular, that would be done in this particular regard. There was a question, and maybe Premier, if you allow, that Member Malema raises about life as demand and how far the claims are. Just to give in more precise terms, we're sitting at the moment where we have 515 claims that have been submitted, and on analysis, because once a claim is submitted, the process goes through an internal audit process to determine whether that which is being claimed is authentic and whether the claimants are the correct claimants. We have been able to get of the 551 that have been submitted, about 111 of those have been disqualified because they did not meet the criteria of falling into the category of persons that have to be reimbursed, or that have to be compensated rather than being that have to be compensated as per the arbitration award. Of that number, we are aware that there are the first 50% of the claims have been paid to the majority of the members. Where the process is stuck at the moment is the 50% as it relates to the payments to the mental health care users, because the payment had to be split into those that are taking care of them at home, but equally the claimants, the mental health care users. And that process, where it involved mental health care users, has also been held up in the Master of the High Court, because it had required that the Master of the High Court be involved in the actual adjudication and management of the compensation that links or that is related to the mental health care users directly, as opposed to their family members. We have been in contact with the Solicitor General with a view to finding a best way to accelerate the resolution of those claims that are still held by the Master of the High Court processes. And in fact, on Monday this week, we already met with the family committee representatives to give them an update, and we have indicated the process in this particular regard. So as in terms of life as many, that's how far I can say as in terms of the claim. But the second issue is there is a government gazette that was published in July. In this government gazette, we were making a public announcement that should there be any of the mental healthcare users who would have been beneficiaries to the arbitration award, but they have not come forward, we're wanting them to come forward. So we have made it public, and we have given it up to the 29th of September as the closing date for any member of the public who may know, or those that may have missed the opportunity to come forward and register their claims, that they could be able to come. So we hope that with those two processes, we will be able to get the issue of the claimants fully dealt with. The last aspect in terms of life as many is that there has been a decision that there be a monument erected in honor of those that passed, but as a remembrance that an incident like this will never happen. EXCO has taken a decision to erect a stone monument as a first prize, but secondly, that we would then have a living monument. And with a living monument, it would suggest that there be a facility that will always ensure that persons with that require mental health care attention have got a space dedicated where they may be treated. And that work is continuing and ongoing. Maybe, Chair, with your permission, maybe let me ask DDG Zulu to talk to the question of the outstanding payment, if any, to Harambe on the claims, as far as I'm aware. With your permission, if you could allow. Ntombi, do you want to come through?
Thank you, DG. Yes, it's to confirm. So the early termination of the contract with Harambe had no financial cost. There was no obligation. The last transfer that we did to Harambe was at the end of the financial year 22-23. So there is no more monies to be transferred. As I indicated, the budget that we currently have and CFO indicated will be transferred to education during the adjustment period in October. So that is fine. If you allow me, DG, just on the issue of the database and job placement, in the detailed report, we do indicate how many of those jobs are permanent, how many of those are for a year, for 2 years, and sectors that they are employed in. If members would like that report, it is available. Just to caution that everything is based on the agreement that we signed, which was self-placement and placement. So the report is aligned to the contract with Harambe. So those reports will then be made available. Thank you.
Chair, let me also, as I proceed, Member Msimang had raised an issue about the financial misconduct and the amounts that are paid or that are outstanding. I want to bring it to the attention of the committee that we have found the report on SCOPA to have indicated an amount of 57 million reported under eGov. However, the report by the department indicates that no one was found guilty, and therefore we are engaging with the Public Service Commission to correct that particular amount, because at this point in time, it looks like there are two different sets of information that we have to what has been reported on the strength of the evidence that is before us, and therefore it is something that we would like the Public Service Commission to correct. Chair, and I think Member Malema was right to raise, because it's a question that Member Albert indicated on how are we planning to, what's our plan to increase access to opportunities for persons with disabilities. But in our report, we had indicated the first step towards achieving that, where we indicated how, as part of our drive to get entities that are owned by persons with disabilities to be registered on the CSD, this becomes one of the elements, and the numbers that we have indicated of over 4,000 entries that have since in the first quarter have been able to be registered is a demonstration of our deliberate attempt to want to deal with the increase in ensuring access to opportunities for persons with disabilities. In the same vein, Member Albert would have raised a question about that it can only be government that will solve the problems of unemployment, and we agree indeed that that can't be the role of government alone. But what we have been able to also demonstrate is that through different initiatives, and maybe Premier will expand, but through different initiatives of making Gauteng a destination of choice for investment purposes, either through participation in the Inter-African Trade Fair, in terms of getting the different attending to the Brussels Metropolis program, and all of the, in terms of the support to the special economic zones that are being developed in the corridors of our province. All of these are additional attempts through which and by which we hope that private sector would be able to join with government, and that as they bring investments, that additional jobs will be created. So our move is deliberate to want to make Gauteng as an investment destination of choice. Premier, those are the key questions that we could respond to. Can we hand over back to you, Premier?
Premier, any closing remarks? I think we lost the Premier.
No, I'm here. If you don't mind.
Oh, okay, Premier.
That was muted. Can you hear me now? Honorable Tamini, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. You can switch off your video because I think there's a poor connection.
Thanks so much. Thanks for that opportunity. Chair, let me add my voice in congratulating Member Msimang for his resounding victory to be the leader of Democratic Alliance in our province. We look forward in working together to ensure that things are appropriately attended and resolved in our province. He enjoys my support and enjoys my well wishes as well. Chair, I've not seen the report Member Msimang is speaking about of the Public Service Commission. When he was speaking, I quickly tried to get the latest reports, and I'll ask my office to get this report so that I can familiarize myself with and then attend to the issues that Member Msimang is, especially the matters of financial misconduct, totaling an amount of 67 million. And that there were no criminal cases opened by the province. It's shocking, and I'll need to satisfy myself first before I can comment on it. I'll refer the matter to the DG to assist me. What I know, we are proud of the province that have established an independent team that deals with this kind of reports. Reports from the Public Service Commission, reports from the SIU, reports from the Hawks, reports from the Auditor General. There is an independent team outside the department that is chaired by a retired AG Dr. Nombembe, who also has independent people ranging from all these chapter 13 institutions. If there is that kind of a report, I can assure Member Msimang that I'll refer it to that institute to assist us to go to the bottom of it. And also to be labeled that we are number 3 in the country. It's not an honor that I can cherish. So as soon as I get that report, I will attend to it in the future. The sharp increase in the salary bill that Member Msimang is raising is also our desire to capacitate the state. You can't have vacant posts that are not capacitated or not filled. It weakens the state, and that's why you'll find major posts in hospitals and schools are vacant. We don't have social workers, it delays judgment in courts. We don't have teachers, it affects overcrowding in our schools. So I don't think it should be seen as a negative point, but as a positive point that the government that I have the honor to lead have taken this matter serious of filling vacancies, and by extension, if those vacancies exist within our program, obviously, the salary bill will increase. And this has nothing to do with nurses. I want to confirm to you, especially Member Adams, that the nurses panel, I put stringent processes before the post can be filled. No single post has been filled as of today. I've put stringent processes that each and every department must give us their recruitment and fillings of post strategy. It must be approved by our DG, and every post before it's filled, the HOD of Treasury must prove and accept that there is finance. So any concern raised by Member Msimang that we might have a financial disaster in our province is not justified. I don't think that there is justification for that. We've put proper systems. And we've also indicated to Member Adams that there will be public interviews. I'm trying to persuade some of the television channels to have, they call it reality show. I requested them to have a reality show from the applications, so that they can record that, the interviews, the shortlisting, and the filling of those posts, and also to check if those people that have been appointed have any political affiliation. So we will be transparent with that process, but no single person has been appointed thus far until those recruitment plans are approved and the financial model is also approved. So I felt that aspect needed to be clarified. On the issue of Step 1 million, I think we agree. I said to the team, whatever new job opportunities that we are having for young people must also be incorporated with this youth plug, maybe to move with times, they call it youth plug. We should accommodate that, which means that there are some job opportunities within the Department of Education. They've requested that Tshepo 1 million or a youth plug must come to their rescue and then give the necessary support of creating jobs for them. Member Malema, thank you so much for your kind words. Indeed, it's very important that the Office of the Premier must lead and must ensure that departments understand the importance of having clean audit. And for us to get another clean audit is an affirmation of that commitment. And you're correct, the manner in which you manage the outbreak of cholera in Tshwane, but I must thank the President and also the National Department of Water and Sanitation for their quick response. We will continue to ensure that we give the necessary support as per your kind request, Member Malema. Member Bloom, maybe it's an interpretation of what are real jobs and what are placed. Where we stand, I can tell you 6,000 young people that were unemployed 8 months before I assumed or resumed the responsibilities of the Premier of this province. 6,000 young people who are now part of the police wardens are permanently employed. Those jobs were not there 8 months ago. And they're not placed. They're in a job permanently, getting a salary of almost 7,000, 8,000, depending on their qualification every month. These are real jobs, it's not placement. But in terms of Tshepo 1 million, maybe that's where you are putting your argument. Remember, Albert, I share your frustration. Actually, the DG and the team will tell you, I took all the HA duty tasks and I told them I'll terminate their contract if they don't employ people with disability. It's not a favor to employ people with disability. It's an obligation that we need to get to and support. So we're not where we're supposed to be. And I had a session with all the HODs of all departments and agencies in our province, and I raised this matter sharply. And I hope it will be rectified. The reason why we're investing in them, and I'm glad you are raising it sharply, Advocate Albert, that the tax base is shrinking because of various reasons, but high on the agenda, I had an opportunity to interview people that are leading our country. I had the opportunity to interview people that I meet when I travel across the globe. I have an opportunity to meet with people that wants to come back home, that they left. High on the agenda is the issue of crime. And that is why we are taking all our investment and resources to capacitate community safety in our police and our law enforcement agencies now. There's no one that wants to bring their families to a Gauteng where our crime stats sounds like we're in a war zone. And no one would invest in our country when there's this high level of business burglaries. So to broaden the tax base, before you even go to foreign direct investment, you need to have a domestic direct investment. It must attract, and people that are in our country must believe that our country is investor friendly. And that's an area that I need to. Indeed, the trips that we've went to Finland, China, Belgium, they're starting to yield dividends. If you check the number of companies now that are bidding for our energy solution in our Gauteng, our energy solution in Gauteng, it's a clear indication that we're attracting good people. At BRICS, it has been very hectic and busy because everyone wants to invest in Gauteng. And I'm hopeful that we'll get the necessary new investment and take advantage of the other countries that want to join BRICS also to invest in our country. It's not only about investment, revenue arrangement, and these countries opening their markets for our products. Bishop, I can't deny what you have just said, that what we have done with NAS Pilot has created hope. The single noticeable job creation program in the country, across the country. Even the president acknowledged that when he visited us over the weekend. So we are quite impressed that we put that program, and indeed will respond and put up a grid where you can track progress so that you can monitor progress that we've made on this program. I want to leave it there, Honorable Chairperson, and thank members for always giving us guidance and ideas on how best to run government in our province. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thank you very much with your team for the responses, and thank you that we are able, as the committee, to also influence some programs. I'm very impressed by the rebranding of Tshepo 1 million and doing away with it, and as a result of the intervention of the committee, it shows that we are really working together to make sure that we improve the lives of our people. Thank you very much, Premier, and your team, and thank you, members, for your contributions. You are released, Premier.
Thank you so much. Congratulations once more, big head. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Members, we are running late. We're supposed to log out of this meeting to our next meeting. But let us just finish here. I know that there is no resolution tracking, there is no correspondence, and this meeting is adjourned. Let's go and log into the next meeting with the GPL, which was supposed to start at 12. Thank you, members, for your attendance and your contribution and support.
Do we use this link?
No. There's another link. Go to your calendar and turn.
Okay, thank you.
Log off here and then log in another one.
Thank you,
Chairperson.
Thank you.
Later. Bye. I must drive fast now.
I'm already on my way.
Just the secretary, he's joining us just now. He is final.
Yeah,
Yes.
Natu would like to apologize. We delayed with the premier. We thought we'll be done by 12. We just finished now.
Yes, sir.
Other members are joining us now. Let us give ourselves another 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Are we on the right, crafting the right link, right platform?
Yes, we are in the right meeting, member.
Thank you. Thank you. I see the other members are getting lost. They didn't have the right GPS to get here.
They must go to their calendar, Lona, and just.
Yeah, but they use their own GPS. They don't use their cars to get here. That's the problem.
Chair, we are here.
Good. We just said we give ourselves 5 minutes for members to come in and also to allow the secretary and the speaker to join us. I'm not sure that they are already here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. They will indicate when they are ready. We are ready. Maybe in the meantime, let's declare the meeting open and welcome everyone who is here. Do we have any apologies for this second meeting?
Good day, Chairperson and honorable members. We have not received any apology for this session. Thank you.
Perfect. Good. Can I have the confirmation of the agenda?
Sorry, Chair. I'm sorry, I just connected late. We do have an apology from Ms. Masulu. Okay. Chair, we're trying to locate the speaker. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Secretary.
Chair, let me move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Malema? Thank you very much. Can we, Secretary, are you ready?
Yes, Chair, we are ready. I'm just waiting for Matabo to join. She's just setting up, Chair. So we'll deal with the presentation on the non-financial performance of the institution, which will be done by Matabo, and then I will deal with the responses to the questions, Chair. I must apologize for some of the responses that were sent today. I think there was a misunderstanding between myself and Mr. Makamba in relation to what was submitted as responses prior to him acting chair. So we apologize for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Apology accepted.
Chair, Ms. Mulobi will proceed with the presentation.
Is she ready?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Chairperson and honorable members. Thank you for the opportunity to present the first quarterly report of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Please, if you may confirm if you can see my presentation on your screen, and then I will then proceed to make the presentation. I don't know if it is showing now.
No, it's not showing.
It's still not showing?
It's now showing, yes.
Okay.
But we can see, Chair. We can see the presentation.
It's showing now.
It is showing.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. The first quarterly report is based on the approved 2023-2024 annual performance plan, and it is also in line with the requirements of the FAMPLA. Here, Chairperson and honorable members, we will be looking at what are the, in terms of the plans that we had made commitment to implementing for the year. How far have we gone in terms of implementing those as far as quarter one is concerned? Where there are areas of deviation, we will also be able to speak to. I must also say that this particular quarterly report was also reviewed and verified by the internal audit as accurate and complete in terms of performance for the first quarter. The overall report covers other sections that are non-financial performance, but also issues of risk, employment equity, as well as the financial performance report for the quarter, Chairperson. So overall, the report is the plan for the annual plan is actually in line with the 6th legislature's strategy, where we are implementing it in line with our constitutional mandate and with the outcomes that want to contribute to improving the lives of the people of Gauteng. So in terms of non-financial performance, Chairperson, at the end of Q1, we had a total of 15 performance targets that were planned. 12 of those were actually achieved, and 3 that were not achieved were the consideration of resolution responses by committees, the HR strategies implementation plan for the year for the first quarter, as well as the leadership initiative implementation plan for the first quarter. However, Chairperson, I also need to also highlight that during that same period, we had an additional 4 targets that were not achieved. I mean, that were not planned for the first quarter, but that were not achieved. So initially on the planned target, we achieved 80%. However, in addition to that 80%, we had 4 targets that were achieved, which is motions, laws passed, regulations, as well as the transversal mainstreaming. So those 4 targets were planned for other quarters, but were actually achieved in this quarter. Hence, we also include them in the overall calculation of performance of the institution. The 3 areas of non-achievement remain the same. So the next slide is just giving you details of the areas of non-performance. And the next slide is also just highlighting what was the area of a deviation for those not planned for Q1, but were then achieved. Most of them were planned for Q2 with 1 for Q4, but all of them have been achieved. In terms of financial performance, we are at 92% achievement, 92.5%. And I think when the CFO makes the presentation on finance, we will then be able to see areas of financial performance. Chairperson, in the interest of time, I will just highlight that, this slide is highlighting areas where we've really made good in terms of performance, except for the 11% of resolution responses that was achieved, versus the 75% that was planned for. So this basically is saying that we received 153 responses on the resolutions from the executive, but due to various other commitments, only 17 of those 153 were actually considered. And then in terms of the other outcomes, also we're highlighting areas of achievement, which I will then move to the performance table, Chairperson. So in terms of the areas of performance overall, under strategic outcome number 1, which looks at oversight and accountability towards service delivery, all the targets except 1 that were planned were achieved. And the reason for non-achievement is that not all committees were able to consider resolution due to the need to prioritize APP and budget processes in Q1. So in terms of ensuring that we mitigate this particular issue, that we don't find the same situation in Q2 of underperformance here, we have, during our planning process, which took place in the last month or so, we were highlighting that it is important for us to actually ensure that the responses that we receive are also looked at and considered by the various committees. We also had a discussion with the CSU, the committee support staff, to also provide, a particular type of support to the committees so that focus can also be on the resolutions, because at the end of Q2, we have a deviation of, that 64%, which is going to add to what needs to actually be considered by the end of the Q2. So it's an area we need to look at. And in the previous year, we actually had overachieved in this particular target. So hopefully we will get to exceeding the expected performance in this particular area. So all other targets, Chairperson, were achieved. We have also 2 other positive deviations on the number of questions papers processed. We had an overachievement by 3 of those, and that motions was not necessarily a planned target, and it was achieved in that particular quarter. So if you look at the considerations of responses, you will see that of all the committees that had received the responses, we had about 4 committees, I think 5 committees that managed to review the responses. And none of the committees were able, I think it's only the committee responsible for Treasury that managed to review all the responses that they received. They received 2 and they managed to look at 2. The other committees, I think, will then have to come up with sort of some form of a recovery plan to be able to review those resolutions for the quarter. Under outcome number 2, on lawmaking, for the quarter, we had actually 1 target, but when you look at achievement, we were able to process 15 bills in the quarter. We also was able to pass the Gauteng Provincial Bill for 23-24. And also, we also were looking at the percentage of approved regulations. So we approved 3 regulations, which is the health scheduled patients fees for 2023. Those were actually achieved accordingly. This slide is providing the list of the bills that were processed in the reporting period under review. Under outcome number 3, where we look at meaningful participation, we have 2 targets that were planned, and both of them were actually overachieved. The first one is extra 11 petitions that were considered by the petitions committee. I think, and then the second one is an extra 28 public education workshops that were conducted. And here we had a lot of demand for public education workshops to support the work of the committee, hence the high number of positive deviation. On improved alignment and collaboration with other organs of state, we had planned to implement the strategy in terms of 40% of the outputs that were planned for the quarter, and that was achieved accordingly. When you review the petitions that were considered by the petitions committee, we had a total of 41. 30 of those were from Ekurhuleni, and we had none from West Rand, 1 from Citibank, and only 2 from Tshwane. In terms of the distribution of the petitions by who actually submitted these petitions, we had more female submitting petitions than male at 54%. In terms of the petition type, we still see that more of the petitions that we get have to do with housing, followed by general basic services, infrastructure development, general administration and governance, and 1 for land issues that have to do with land and labor relations as alike. On the analysis of the petitions, we have almost all 40 of them that come from the current legislature, with only 1 that was reviewed that comes from the previous legislature. So this also shows that I think the balkanization process that we embarked on early in the previous year is probably showing that now the petitions committee can focus on the current legislature's petitions. On outcome number 5, which is really the enhanced compliance with fiduciary requirements and principles of good governance, where this is mainly to look at how the administration is supporting the work of the House and the committees and ensuring that we are compliant accordingly. On this slide, Chairperson, in terms of the targets that were met, we have 5.5, which is leadership initiative that was not achieved, and we have 5.3, which is a target that was planned for Q2 but achieved in Q1. In terms of area of deviation, which was also a question that was raised by the portfolio committee, we had a 4% delayed. A 4% deviation, and this was due to the delays that we experienced in appointment of a suitable provider to implement. There's three prioritized leadership competencies that we wanted them to come and assist us with. So it took a bit longer than expected to appoint that service provider, and we are currently have made progress towards actually implementing that particular deviation, and we should be able to report in the next reporting period as a target achieved. That 4% should be achieved by the end of the quarter. Other area of deviation is on the HR strategy, where also we had a 4% deviation because the plan was for 25% achievement for the first quarter. Here, the intention was that we needed to do some benchmarking internally and externally, and also collaborate on the two outputs. And those two outputs have to do with the sexual harassment policy of the institution, as well as to implement an institutional culture survey. Both actually, the policy has been developed, and I think consultation through internal comms was circulated, but it happened to us after the end of the quarter. And the survey is also underway, and by the end of Q2, we should have completed the survey, and we should also be able to maybe share the recommendations of what would have come out of that particular survey with the committee. On number 5.9 that talks to integrated communication strategy. There also the plan was to implement 90% planned output for the quarter. However, due to the intensified public participation and voter education programs through the schools competition, we found that we actually overachieved by 10%, and we're hoping to keep it that way, so that we are able to respond to the request that we get from the communities that we serve, and therefore there were no other negative or positive deviations remaining. In terms of the performance on preferential procurement, Chairperson and honorable members, we have only one deviation, that is with people living with disabilities, where we had 5% planned and we achieved 2%. We achieved less than 5%. So the intention here also is to do further outreach with this particular group, so that going forward we can then also be able to ensure that we are able to reach them sufficiently. And the total spend is also provided there. I think to conclude, Chairperson, I think we are at 84% achievement of the target, with 16 of the 19 targets achieved, and those 3 are the areas of non-achievement. And then it is tabled, this report is tabled for the consideration of the committee. Thank you, Chairperson. I will pause there, and I'm not sure if we will then proceed with the finance now or whether we take questions now. Thank you.
No, let's deal with the financials, and the responses then we'll engage.
Okay. Sorry? Yes, we continue with the, yes. The CFO will then present. I think he's loading that presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. We take pleasure in presenting the financial report for Q1 I needed to confirm whether the presentation is appearing on the screen.
It's appearing, Tshepo, and continue.
Okay. Okay. As the presentation was distributed, I will then focus on the key highlights and pertinent areas relating to the financial expenditure for the first quarter itself. As this is the reporting for the first quarter, it will be appropriate that we also focus on the budget for the current financial year. And on this particular screen, we will then see the budget allocated of 857 million. And this was subsequent to all the budget processes and the final allocation by Treasury. And the final budget allocation was then aligned to the annual performance plan as well. We will note that the increase from the previous financial year was just under 3%. As we move over on to the next summary, this then breaks down the budget allocation in terms of the various categories. Compensation of employees, we note 421 million, and goods and services 266 million. We note that the allocation for support for political parties, particularly around constituency work and political party work, that entailed 160 million, and on capital assets 8 million. And that makes up the total budget of 857 million for the 23-24 financial year. This then is a breakdown of the compensation for employees, all the various items making up the 421 million. We then move over onto special allocation, and we will note that the breakdown of support for political party work for the current year, 98 million, and support for constituency work, which is paid on a monthly basis, was 62 million. And therefore, we had dedicated party allocation of 160 million for the current financial year. With regard to special projects, we will note that we had a special allocation for space optimization, noting that the contract at the Sage building also the lease contract came to an end, and that this entailed allocation costs as well, and the crucial project relating to records management, special allocation was made for that project as well. We now move over onto slide, which then reflects the financial or the budget management in our performance. We will note that we projected to spend 277 million for the first quarter. The actual expenditure was 256 million, which then means that we spent 92.5% for the first quarter of the financial year. We will then provide a breakdown of the reasons contributing to the underspend as well. This particular slide gives a breakdown of the various areas and the spending and the percentages accordingly. We will note on compensation for employees, we had a 1% variance. Around goods and services, just under 30%. With regard to transfers and subsidies support for political party work and constituency work, we note that 100% was paid out to all political parties, and capital assets, we note that there has been an over expenditure. However, this is then subject to certain rollovers, which is permitted by the Act itself. This graphical illustration of the spread of expenditure, we will note that the compensation employees was 35%, goods and services 20%, and support for political parties around 45%. We then move over on the analysis of the expenditure for the quarter itself, and we will note that compensation employees was just under 90 million. We spent 99% of what we projected to spend, and we provide a breakdown of the various categories. Under goods and services, we spent 51.5 million. 70.5% of what we projected to spend. The key contributing items to the expenditure were travel expenditure of almost 25 million, and the various monthly contractual services that we are committed to, particularly around security and the normal operating expenses, as well as advertising and marketing as well. This particular slide gives a breakdown of further expenditure items. I would not read line by line, but it gives the breakdown of the various items. This particular slide then highlights the allocation to the various parties as represented at the legislature, and we will note that the support for political party work, the total of 98.3 million, that was paid out in the first month of the quarter of the financial year, as is customary. And we will note then the constituency allowance that is paid out on a monthly basis, that is in line with the number of representatives or representations per political party, and that made up 15.5 million. So we have spent 114 million in the first quarter of the financial year, and that is 100% in terms of what we projected to spend. Capital assets, we note we spent 1.8 billion, and it was primarily around laptops, the delivery that was delayed from the previous financial year. There was also furniture that we required in certain areas as well, making up the 1.8 million. The main causes of expenditure variation, we noted under compensation of employees and the primary area of underspending unfilled vacancies due to various resignations as well. And there was also the outstanding 21-22 pay progression for the P7, P8 category of staff, which then concluded in the second quarter of the financial year. We noted other areas of under expenditure, and I'll just touch on the significant areas. Outstanding invoices for service providers. The Sage building rental, we note that the lease ended at the end of June. We reconciled the account. There were certain anomalies and also errors that were on the last bill, and as a result, there was a delay in the payment of the last bill. It was important that we ensure that what we are billed for is the services that we received. There were a number of committee activities in terms of the projections, and and we realized certain savings as well. Certain of the activities could not be executed due to various commitments as well. There was also the payment for the cell phones that was projected for the first quarter. However, there were delays in the participation contract, and it was only appropriate that we only pay whilst the contract was duly signed and committed to. There were other areas for other expenditure as well. The insurance premium, once again, there was a process for renewing the premium that was then resolved in the second quarter of the financial year. There were certain delayed milestones in a records management project, and we will only pay once those milestones are executed and services rendered by the service provider. There were activities around the youth sector parliament, but was also there deferred to the next quarter as well, and also invoices from the audit fees that were not received in the first quarter, which will now be received in the second quarter. We had over expenditure on the capital assets, and this was particular laptops, as indicated. This was from the previous financial year, the order that came through now, which had to be paid in the current financial year. This will be resolved through the rollover of the capital assets budget. Whilst we report on under expenditure, we also conduct an analysis in terms of the under expenditure, what component is attributable to savings and what is attributable to under expenditure. And our analysis then revealed that as 1.9 million of the total under expenditure for the quarter itself is attributable to savings. And we hope to realize more savings in the future quarters as well. Up to this point, we were reporting for the quarter one of the financial year, but as quarter one is the first quarter of the financial year, our year-to-date expenditure will remain the same. So we will note that our total budget is 857 million. We spent 256 million. We therefore spent 30% of our total budget for the entire financial year. At this juncture, we are projecting to spend the total budget for the 23-24 financial year at the end of the financial year. That's giving a further breakdown of the year-to-date, and we know that 30% has then been spent. In terms of the percentage share, we will note that compensation employees, 35%, goods and services, 20%, and transfers and or allocations to parties make up the 45% as well, whilst corporate support services entail 62.3% and core business 20%. But we always emphasize the point that whilst corporate support is reflecting 62%, we will note that the significant component of that expenditure is then directed towards core business and support for political party work. This slide highlights the committee's expenditure, and we will know that budget allocation was 32 million for the work of committees, and we projected to spend 8 million in the first quarter. We spent 3.5 million for the first quarter. We spent just under 50% of what we projected to spend. So will require more focus in terms of the activities and the projections for the remaining 3 quarters to ensure that we do not have or we do not incur any under expenditure when it comes to the budget allocation for committees as well. Chair, we have also included a slide where we believe is quite relevant and important. It's around own revenue with regard to the curtailed budget as we now have, or the decline in budget allocation as well. It also becomes the emphasis also shifts in terms of how we generate our own revenue and also in efficiencies in how we do things. In terms of own revenue, we generated 11.5 million for the first quarter itself, and this was primarily around parking income. We also generated investment income. We have now implemented the investment policy, and we will know that almost 1.5 million was generated through that particular process. So we have therefore generated 11.5 million in the first quarter. Whilst we budgeted to generate 35 million based on the performance in the first quarter, we do believe that we may be able to generate just under 50 million at the end of the financial year. This is a graphical illustration of the revenue collected, and it's making up of investment income and interest received. Almost 94% is attributable to that particular items. The slide highlights travel expenditure for the first quarter itself. We will note that expenditure was almost 25 million for the first quarter itself, which means we have spent 40% of the total budget of 63 million for the entire financial year, because we had a number of committees that traveled in the first quarter as well. And this then basically highlights the committees travel in the first quarter. We will note that expenditure of 23 million that occurred in the first quarter of the financial year. With regard to projects, we spoke about space optimization, almost 7 million allocated. We spent just 1.2 million in the first quarter. We will then realize the further expenditure in the remaining quarters of the financial year. Records management indicated there are milestones that were identified. These milestones were not executed in the first quarter, and hence there was no expenditure. We will then meet the milestones in the remaining quarters, and payments will be effected accordingly as well. There are certain projects that we rolled over from the previous financial year, which we approved as part of rollovers. We have not incurred any expenditure in the first quarter of the financial year. This then brings us to the concluding remarks of the presentation itself. We will note that in the first quarter, we spent 92.5% of what we projected to spend. We also realized savings of just under 2 million in the first quarter. Our year-to-date expenditure in the first quarter is then 30% of the total budget of the entire financial year. We also noted there were certain priorities that we needed to fund in the first quarter of the financial year, and we therefore take on the responsibility to ensure that there is continued implementation of cost efficiency measures as well as the promotion of fiscal discipline. There was also approval of unplanned and unfunded activities, and we also always take the position that emerging priorities and unfunded activities must be limited to and must be subjected to the principles of unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditure. It must not be as a consequence of poor planning. And also we take the responsibility of ensuring this quarterly review projection to identify areas of potential saving as well, and to always ensure that when we conduct a review projections, to ensure that we have the necessary capacity to spend, and that will then inform the ultimate budget. On that note, Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present. It brings me to the end of the financial presentation.
Thank you very much, Ismail. With your permission, the Chair and members, may I proceed to the responses first to quarter one questions, and then also we've submitted responses to House resolutions on quarter four resolutions, Chair. So if I may start first with the responses to the questions on quarter one. Matawi is writing the responses, Chair.
Okay.
It's not showing here, Madam. Chair, Matawi is trying to project, but since we've submitted questions, Chair, with your permission again, I may proceed until she's able to project the responses. Is that acceptable? Oh, it is showing now. Okay. Thank you very much, Matabo. Chair, I think with regard to the responses to the questions that emanated from quarter one analysis, we wish to respond as follows, and I will not read every word because Matabo has already presented some of the areas, Chair. First, to indicate that the leadership initiative is aimed at increasing employee morale, retention, improve productivity, promote better decision making, build better teams, as well as create pipeline for future leaders who have shared management. This forms part of our repurposing and repositioning and value creation for the legislature, focusing in the main on people. As you recall, our strategy focuses on purpose, people, and performance. So this part deals with the areas around the people. And what we're reporting also is that in the period of reporting, we expected to report on 6 milestones or outputs. We have achieved out of that 5 milestones, and there's a 1 deviation. So in total, it's about 25%. We've achieved 21% and have deviated on 4%. The deviation has been largely due to the delays experienced in the appointment of suitable service providers to implement the prioritized leadership competencies. Some of the outputs that were achieved include coaching for the 5 executives. So there is a process of coaching and team building for the executives, and the development of management development programs for managers. In line with the intention, a leadership pipeline training was developed. The training curriculum with mandatory and elective training framework for improved competencies and capabilities needed for managers to support work of committees developed. Chair, what is important about this aspect is that it is also going to form part of our bursary policy. It's going to influence our bursary policy, ensuring that we focus our effort and training development in those areas that the legislature require most. But as we've indicated, the outputs were delayed by the finalization of the appointment of the service provider. Some of the areas that will also be implemented on the leadership competencies is the culture management, relationship building, and strategic networking, people leadership, and emotional intelligence, Chair. With regard to the achievement of the milestone in the HR strategy, Chair, the strategy focuses in the main on the employee engagement, ensuring that employees are motivated, productive, and their wellness considered towards creation of a culture of performance. Focus areas include positive work culture, recognition programs, and training and development opportunities to ensure employees are engaged and committed. We have about 56 milestones in the review. 14 milestones were due to for reporting. We have achieved 12 of those milestones, which recruitment of interns, development of talent management and employee value proposition frameworks, change management strategy, and submission of including employee wellness and the review of the service level agreements for input by PMS. What has not been yet achieved, Chair, is the issue of the sexual harassment policy and the implementation of the culture survey. As part of value creation, we will be conducting a culture survey to get a temperature of our culture and get the baselines so that we can be able to programs to improve on those areas. And this will be achieved in the second quarter, Chair. With regard to House resolutions, I think we had spoken to this area. We had set the target at 75% in consideration of the, the election and the work that committees will be, members of the legislature will be undergoing. And this is an area, Chair, where in the audit report that I should have probably started it, where in the legislature has sustained its clean. Amongst the areas that the Auditor General commended the legislature was improvement in the issues around the House resolutions, Chair. But as you could see, that in the first quarter, we only achieved 17 of the 153, resolutions. So there's a deviation of about 98. No, I'm sorry. There's actually a deviation that is much higher than 98. I think the deviation is around 136. So this has been as a result of not all committees considering resolutions with a focus on the budget, APP, Chair, including also, the work that the committees have in terms of undertaking benchmarking and study tours. So there's a huge gap, but we need to be able to in the second quarter, including resolutions that will be due, in the second quarter. So the first one is going to be to close the gap for one, and then deal with the resolutions of quarter two. This is going to require a lot of effort by committees if we are to be able to sustain the commendations that came from the AG Chair. With regard to question 2, on the targets, Chair, we just want to report that the targets have not really been revised, Chair. These targets are original targets, and I think, overall, these targets be achieved at the end of the year. So what is being reported is a performance target in relation to the first quarter. So in quarter one, in terms of township economy, our target would have been to achieve a 2.5%, which cumulatively will lead to a 10% achievement in the quarter. I think next time Ishmael will just again show the quarter and the original annual just so that there's no confusion around that part. Chair, with regard to program 1, the overspend, before we spoke in a bit to this, there was a reconfiguration of committees in 2022-23 of the previous financial year, which resulted in reconfiguration of the committees. And because some of the committees were also and that also resulted in the creation of additional committees, which all of them were scheduled for travel per cluster as they constituted the economic cluster. And in the adjustment budget, Chair, these areas were not necessarily catered for. But since the reconfiguration, we needed to ensure that is made available for this. The overspend Chair, I think it's also important to explain that the overspend is this of what was projected to be spent in quarter 3. So the additional resources in total did not lead to an over expenditure in the whole budget of the legislature, Chair. With regard to disciplinary cases, Chair, there are 4 disciplinary cases depicted below. 3 of them are still in progress. This relate to grievances, and 1 was for misconduct, and there was a written warning provided. It's also important to indicate that a detailed report on the disciplinary cases is also tabled to the Human Resource Development and the LSP Chair. But if the committee want more information, we will be able to provide that information, Chair. I think on the issue of the consequence management on the SNT, this is a matter also that the AG has raised, which has taken a bit longer. As we've previously indicated, the investigations have been concluded. Because of the number of cases that are going to be involved, we are in the process of procuring a service providers to assist us in expediting the disciplinary processes, Chair. And the delays that were encountered in the SCM processes necessitated further delay. We are confident that those would be concluded in this quarter, and that the consequence management will then start taking place, Chair. Chair, having concluded on that, I will also go to, with your permission, to the House resolution on quarter 4 performance report, which were also submitted to the committee. The first question related to the impact of underspending against the 4th quarter and annual expenditure, Chair. You'd have noticed that the final in the final report that also served in the AG, the underspend was basically confirmed, Chair. I think what is important with regard to the underspending, not overspending, the underspending and its impact on the institution, amongst others, is that the institution has been able to achieve 83% of its targets, and would have outlined what were the challenges with the other targets that were not achieved, and that will be one of the major impact, Chair, of the underspending. What is also important to note, Chair, is that in the report we also indicate areas of savings, and I think today also, as the CFO was presenting, we also identify areas of overspending, and we distinguish between underspending and a saving, where in an underspending is where you may still have achieved your planned targets, but you've achieved them, or you underspend your budget, which may have impacted on your achievement of your overall targets. But with a saving, this is where you would have achieved and in some instances exceeded achievement, but with less than what was projected to be spent. And what we're encouraging, Chair, is more savings. That we should spend our budget, ensure that we achieve our targets, and avoid having underspending. But part of the underspending, as we would have also reported, relates to compensation of employees, especially in the areas where some of the vacant positions have not been filled and have been frozen, Chair. So the total impact on the organization could be seen also in the overwork of the staff members, the increased stress levels, as colleagues have to do more than just what they are basically employed to do. And we address these areas through, amongst others, the wellness programs to ensure that there's a work-life balance, Chair. With regard to the next part of the report, there's a detailed process, Chair, outlining our budgeting process, which basically starts with the strategic planning, which involves a participatory process to ensure accountability for allocated resources. We're using activity-based costing methodology to identify all activities approved in the operational and APP to ensure that those get to be funded and assign cost to each of those activities identified. And final allocation budgets and budget decisions are communicated to projects, including projections that the programs need to ensure that they submit on for quarterly expenditure. And there are also early warnings reports that are sent to programs to notify them and to hold them accountable for the projected overspend or underspend in the program. On a monthly and quarterly basis, the SPME and budget unit monitor both financial and non-financial performance to ensure that spending is in line with approved plans and budget. And this ultimately gets to be submitted to the Secretariat, and the quarterly reports are also submitted to oversight bodies, Chair. Projects and committees also receive monthly financial performance reports to track progress and to provide reasons and remedial actions for budget variances, whether it's over or under. So there's a need to provide that evidence. And as I've indicated, projections are reviewed on a quarterly basis. And what we're working on is to continue strengthening these existing measures to ensure that we still do not have, underspending, unnecessary underspending and over or unnecessary overspending. We are also linking this to our calibrated performance management system, especially at senior management level, and we'll roll out that calibration to other levels, Chair. With regard to the issues of capital expenditure, Chair, we continue to experience some of the challenges, even though I think we can report that there is now beginning to be progress, especially in improving our terms of reference, engaging external expertise where we may not have the skills in refining our terms of reference, improving quality demand plans, and ensuring that there's collaboration between SCM and line with regard to these demand plans, including looking at the timely sourcing of service providers and also innovative but legal alternative sourcing strategies, Chair. We're also working on strengthening, the capital expenditure from conception to implementation and completion through the project governance framework and collaborations between the project governance and the project owners. Chair. We will be initiating will prompt programs to initiate spending at the beginning of the financial year to avoid delays and underspending. What we are also looking at is, the SCM procurement processes don't have to start at the beginning of the financial year. But once the projects are approved and allocation made, that procurement has to start taking place, so that where we may have delays, they do not necessarily impact in the year of implementation of the project. Chair, we'll also improve on the monitoring both of the milestones of the projects and also on the spending of the project. I think that concludes our responses, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair and members.
Thank you very much, Secretary and the team. Members, any follow-up questions or comments? When in the I see there's one hand, but I don't see whose hand is it.
It's Member Msimanga, Chair.
Oh, Member Msimanga, yes.
Chair, thank you very much. I had the unfortunate experience of being locked in the legislature while those who are...
Congratulations, Soli.
Thank you very much, Ademakure. Yeah, the victory came against a lot of investment against me, but story for another day. Chair, I was saying that there is an unfortunate incident that took place in the last sitting that we had. That unfortunately I and Member Bosch could not leave the basement of the establishment or the legislature because we were trapped in and we would not be allowed to come out until workers, legislature workers, were addressed, by a senior official, and none of the officials, or not a senior official, but the politicians, and none of the senior officials were available. And I would not want to have a similar situation happening again, where our lives are put in danger or we are prohibited from doing the work that we're supposed to be doing because there's still a whole lot of unhappiness relating to investigations and salaries and all of that. And this is something that I'm not hearing now, being reported on has been resolved. Where are we with that? Or can we start preparing ourselves for another incident where, those that are finding ourselves parking where we are parking might end up being locked in again? Because the last time they said they were giving the legislature 14 days to respond, or else they will be back on the streets again, or they will do what they have done again. Where are we in terms of that particular case, Chair? That will be the question that I'd like to get clarity on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Msimang. Is there any hand? In the absence of hands, can I have the responses, Secretary?
Yeah, Chair, we did not report on that matter because it's also a matter that has happened post the end of the quarter and reporting on quarter one. I think it's safe to say that the issues are being addressed without going into details, Chair. Thank you. And also it is it is important to understand that, based on the privileges and immunities of members, that it is illegal to disrupt, any member of the legislature and staff, from doing what they are employed to do. And I just wish to leave it at that level, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we apologize profusely for those members who were locked, who could not leave because of the of the demonstration by employees, Chair. The matter relates in the main, first one, to the 13th check which we have reported upon, and that matter is at Labour Court. The second one relates to value creation, wherein ongoing conversations continues to take place, Chair. And there are some perceptions by employees that the process is going to lead to negative, consequences. But we are sensitive to those issues and are alive to the concerns that the employees, both organized and unorganized, are having, including members of the senior management, because it's something that cuts across the entire institution. But as I indicate, Chair, there are ongoing discussions on those areas. Thank you.
Chair, if I may. Chairperson?
Yes, Member Msima.
I'm saying, if I may, can I just make a quick follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, Chair, I welcome and hear what Dr. Skosana is saying. But I'm hoping that one of the things that will get to be addressed is how employees of the legislature behave in an unruly manner by, blocking entrances, one, and preventing people who would otherwise not have a say in a matter that they have a grievance around. And, this seems to now also be a by the way and then to be a forgotten thing. I think this is something that will need to be prevented from happening the next time around. I mean, to be blocked in the basement and to be locked in the basement for 2 hours where you cannot even leave. I think that is something that is very much unfortunate, especially by people who are tomorrow supposed to be again working with me, sitting on the same platform, giving me support. And some of them, using very vulgar language. I found that very distasteful. And I think this is something that will need to be addressed as well, and also be prevented from happening ever again going forward. That's just something that I wanted to put on record here. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
I think, Chair, if I may,
yes, sir.
Just again reiterate, that disrupting any member of the legislature, including a staff member of the legislature, is a violation of the Privileges and Immunities Act, Chair. And I apologize very profusely to Member Msimang. This incident also took place at the time where we had a development seminar of the whole sector. And that's part of the reason why there was no senior manager in the institution. I think the other aspects relating to that matter are matters that still has to be addressed, Chair, including whether that was legal or illegal in itself, Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Secretary. Member Malema.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, once more. And good afternoon, everyone in the meeting. Chair, the first question is in relation to what we call LSB. Is it LSB? What is the actual mandate of this thing called LSB? And I also want to understand, why do we think it's still relevant to the mandate, if that mandate, according to the GPL, it's most relevant, is not a duplication of the responsibilities of other committees or other units in the GPL itself? That's the first question. The second question, I think, is in relation to the non-financial performance report there. I think we're told that there was 15 targets under quarter one that were set, and only 12 achieved. But then we're told of additional targets, I think, on top of the 15 targets, which were not achieved. I did not get to understand as to the rationale behind the additional 4 targets, and why do we still have to refer to those 4 as targets? Because in terms of what you would have said as the targets, they were not there. They were never targeted as part of the performance that would have been expected there. And I did not even get the reasons why those 4 were not achieved. Was it because of maybe they were not initially considered to be the targets? I did not get that. If I can be assisted on that one. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I hope you are recovering. Again, congratulations, Honorable Msimang, on your re-election as chair of your party, and all those who might be here who have been re-elected in your structures. I think it is very unfortunate, the incident that you went through. I sympathize with you. But I also know the inputs or response by the secretary, that there is an expectation that this matter must be dealt with as a matter of extreme urgency, because brushing it on the side has not assisted and has actually frustrated the workers, both organized labor and unorganized or unaffiliated members of the legislature, not even members, officials of the legislature. I'm asking Secretary that we need to put this matter to rest, put it to its logical conclusion, and be able to deal with that. In terms of FAMPLA, we have to begin to, and this is to allude to what my Honorable Mushavi has raised, Malema, that we need to also start working on ensuring that we dispose of the LSP. Its relevance in terms of the law. It's no longer even a matter of relevance. It has now become a matter of legality. Its illegality and standing. It will no longer be able. It's not in terms of the law. It's no longer there. So I think we have to look at that and how we wind that up. But I welcome the report, and we'll wait for the speedy dealing with these matters of labor. Does not only affect us in terms of Simanga being trapped in the basement. Simanga grew up in Atteridgeville. Being trapped in the basement is nothing. But also this workforce is demoralized. The environment has become palatably toxic, and it has made our work very difficult, because you can see that the workers are dragging themselves to work. You can see that they are not happy, and even the input that they are giving in terms of ensuring that we are able to do our work is severely compromised. It's not a matter of just a few days ago or a few months ago. It has now been going on for over 2 years. I'm humbly pleading that we are able to logically deal with this thing and we put it to rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, members. I don't see any hands. Secretary can respond.
I'm going to request that Ms. Mulobi deals with the questions relating to Member Malema in terms of the non-financial performance, and I'll deal with the issues of the LSB and the issues, the questions raised by Member Makubela. Chair, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Secretary, and for the questions, honorable members. In terms of the number of targets that we have planned for the first quarter, it is a total of 15. And for the year, we have a total of 24 KPIs and targets, which include the 4 that I had actually indicated that overall, they were also achieved in quarter 1. They are not targets that were planned for quarter 1, but 3 of them are planned in quarter 2 and 1 was planned in quarter 4. So they are indeed targets that are in the APP that we will then have to report on, implement and report on, but in different quarters. But because we are required to report on performance in the period in which it had actually been undertaken. That is why in the beginning of the presentation, I highlighted that we had a total of 15 targets that were planned for quarter 1. And of those 15 targets that were planned, 3 were not achieved. Hence, the achievement overall is 80% of planned targets. However, in meeting the requirements for complete and accurate reporting within the time in which implementation took place, then we went on to then report to members that there were 4 additional targets that were not necessarily planned for the quarter, but planned for the year in ensuing quarters. So we are reporting on them because they actually took place in this particular quarter, and then we report them as achieved. So in the next quarter, when we are supposed to then report on those, we will then be indicating to the members that this target, although planned for quarter 2, it has already been achieved in the previous quarter and already accounted for, so that we can then be able to report comprehensively in terms of what actually took place and when. So I'm not sure if I've been able to respond to the questions of Honorable Malema, but the target were plans. It's not additional targets that we had not planned for. It's just that they were implemented in a quarter in which they were not planned for. Thank you very much, Chairperson and Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Matabo. Thanks again to the members for the questions that have been asked. I think just on the issues of the Legislature Services Board, and I think it's important to just draw a distinction between what the board does and what the Oversight Committee, such as this one, OCPOL, actually does. The Oversight Committee, in terms of the financial management of Parliament and provincial legislatures, has to hold the legislature accountable. And the executive authority of the legislature is the speaker, who, contrary to what happens in other legislatures in the country, including the parliament, actually attends and gets to be held accountable by the oversight bodies. Some of the functions that are currently done by the OCPOL were also included in the role and responsibility of holding the administration accountable. So the first one, OCPOL, the person who's accountable to OCPOL is the executive authority, and the accounting officer is answerable in terms of the ministerial accountability framework of the legislature. So it's important to distinguish that role. The executive authority, as the speaker, has a responsibility, amongst other things, in terms of what the Legislature Services Act says, to establish the administration, amongst other things. Secondly, to provide strategic direction to management of the organization and develop the vision, mission, and corporate strategy of business, to approve strategic plans and evaluate performance of the organization against approved plans, so that by the time she goes to the oversight bodies, she is reassured that this work has actually been done, to develop governance systems, to ensure appropriate systems and procedures to enable GPL to conduct its business, to provide effective leadership that is governed by ethical principles and moral standards outlined in the Code of Conduct. So some of these areas that I'm going to read now are some of the things that are not even in the portions of them are in the farm plan, but this framework, this LSP provides assistance basically to the executive authority to assure her. So it's a level of assurance for her that whatever the administration gets to table before her has actually been considered and being able to verified, because what we table is also what gets to be overseen by the internal audit, amongst other things. What we've been saying, Chair, is that we do need to repeal the Act, and I just need to explain why the Act needs to be repealed. It is not doing away with the LSP, and put in place policies and mechanisms that still enables the executive authority, whoever the executive authority is, or maybe in future, to still be able to do all those things that needs to happen in the public administration. For instance, in the executive, some of this work about establishing departments and so on is work that gets to be done by the Public Service Commission. But in the legislative sector, work is underway to ensure that there is a body that gets to be established to help the legislatures do that. But in the absence of any other provision, Chair, it has to be understood that these are bodies that basically help advise the executive authority to enable the executive authority to be held accountable. So the repeal of the Act, will not remove the functions, and that's why we say it has to be replaced by policies in line with Section 116 of the Constitution, which relates to internal management, of internal arrangements of the legislatures. Chair, I don't know if that question is responded to. And with regard to the issues raised by Member Makubela around the resolutions of these matters, as the administration, we are quite conscious and alive to what the impact of that. We are also direct recipients, of the challenges that members are raising. And I think it will also be important, Chair, that whilst there's expectations on the part of the members and the represented parties, that management also be given an opportunity to resolve these matters and to be held accountable for how it resolves these matters, Chair. We're trying to resolve them, within speed and within the legal frameworks that are applicable, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. And thank you, members. I don't see
I'm done,
any hand. You're done, yes. Thank you very much, Secretary. And thank you very much, members. In the absence of any follow-ups, I must thank you, Secretary.
Chair, I'm not sure if I'm the only one who can't hear you, but...
You can't hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, Chair.
We can hear you.
Something wrong with that is Kosana's line.
Oh, okay. No, thank you very much, Secretary and your team, and with the responses and and the presentation. And thank you very much. And thank members for your inputs. Can we then move to the next item? And Secretary, you are released with your team.
Thank you very much. And thanks, honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we quickly move to item 5? Any resolution tracking? None. Correspondence? None. Members, I think we need to explain to you why the round table on people with disability was postponed or cancelled. It's because we're let down on the last minute by the organization that claimed to be representing people with disability to say the date that we have agreed upon and the venue. It's now no more available because they are celebrating their International Disability Day. So in 6 days' time, we couldn't change the venue and look for other stakeholders. Since we said let's move it to the next term, to the next quarter, in fact, so that we work properly and also cast our net wide, so that we engage a number of organizations of people with disability. So that was the reason, members. On that note, the date of the next meeting will be the 24th of August, 2023 at 10 on Teams. Thank you very much, members. The meeting is adjourned.
You are wrong. That's today.
Oh, today is the 24th?
Yes.
Oh, I'm wrong. Okay. Yeah. No, it will be communicated. It will be communicated, members. Thank you for that, Lona. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Bye. Bye.